All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Town Hall. We got a few things to complete before we get to our regular session. It starts at 7:30. We have a few interviews, 2 interviews for the planning board. We're going to take them in the order in which they appear in the agenda. First up, we have Armin Monaco. Armin, come on up. You just want to push the button on your right, make sure that microphone's on. You'll see that the microphone will turn red or the button.
Okay.
All right. First off, I just want to say thank you for your willingness to want to serve. You know, we appreciate anyone who's willing to step up, serve for the town. And then we'll just ask, same questions to you as the other candidate, which is, tell us about yourself, why you think you'd be a good fit for the planning board. If you've been following what's happening at the planning board, maybe tell us, some of your insights, some challenges, some successes they've been having, but go for it.
Okay. As you can see from my resume, that I've been involved in both federal, state, and now I'd like to be involved in the city or the town activities. I've had experience before planning boards and zoning boards in several cities and towns in the state of Rhode Island, in representing both small property owners to major development. So I'm very familiar with the process of what the planning board needs to do. I'm also intrigued by the old Tower Hill Road proposal. I know there's a meeting coming up on Wednesday night that I'd be very interested in, because obviously a town like South Kingston needs to have a balance between preserving the historic character of the town and also the development so that more businesses and income can come into the town. But I think that based on my work experience, my professional life, and my personal life, because I've been involved before the planning board, both professionally and personally, and also the zoning board, that I can lend a good aspect to a balance between development and preservation that is critical, I think, critical for a town like South Kingston.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Armin?
Armin, thank you so much for wanting to serve the town of South Kingstown. Your resume, thank you for your service for our military, and I think that, your role as a magistrate and a military officer is going to be crucial and as serving us. So thank you so much for willing to do that for us.
Thank you.
Armin, I'll just say, you touched on it a little bit. You didn't go too far in detail, but, experience in land use and zoning as an attorney and representing developers, understanding how to sort of navigate different regulations, in a town perspective, I think it's going to be very useful. Yeah. So it's good to see that experience, and happy to see you step up and apply.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up we have Richard Jerzak.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Richard,
Yes.
Same line of questions here. First off, thank you for willingness to step up and serve. Similar questions in that, tell us about yourself, why you think you'd be a good fit for the planning board, and if you've been following it all, maybe some of the challenges, successes you're seeing. So go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've been here since 1969. I went to URI. Okay, I have a bachelor's and master's degree from there. I have a law degree as well. I've been a commercial real estate lawyer. I owned a construction company. I was chairman of the zoning board here for 5 years. Well, I was chairman for 2 years. I was on the board for 5 years. So I have a pretty good feel for zoning issues and actually just about everything in town, because I made it a point of visiting everything that we ever ruled on, okay? I was also on the Economic Development Committee for 5 years, all right? I want to help the town grow. I feel that I have a very good fit for the planning board, okay? And I want to do something for the town, okay? I have recently become a widower, so I've got time, and I'm looking to get back into things a bit. So that's my reasoning.
All right. Any questions for Richard? Well, you as well have great experience, Richard, so we appreciate, you're willing to lend that experience to try to better, one of the boards, for the betterment of the town, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that completes our interviews. We have a work session. Jim, I don't think we have much time to address it. If you think we do, we can go for it. Otherwise, maybe we'll continue it.
I can be very brief, just something to consider for the council to consider. So under the boards and commissions rules, it requires that interviews, which you just saw two, be done before a work session, all right? During the work session, I'm sorry. And the work session is a requirement to have a work session in the way our agenda is set up. So what I'd like the council to consider, and we can talk about this further, is just that we amend that way we could line it up. For example, if we don't have a work session, but we have an executive session, we would have to do it from 6:30 to 7 and just wait around here for 7 to 7:30 with nothing on it, or even if there was one interview where it took 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Or in the opposite way, that if we had a work session, if we have the executive session with no work session, then we start at 6:30, go to 7, nothing in the work session. If we have a work session that goes 5 minutes or 10 minutes, which could happen if we have only a couple of people to interview, then we could have a 20-minute lull time. So what I was thinking of is for efficiency and time management that we consider, if we don't have a work session, we can move the executive session up a half hour early, or if we don't have an executive session or a work session, the meeting could start at 7:30. So this way, it would give an option. I'm not saying that's the way it would be every meeting. It would just give an option so that we can manage the meeting a little better, maybe save a half hour or an hour of time at the beginning of the meeting. So we can discuss this further, because that's something we can put on the agenda if you want, or if it's a hard no, then we won't. But that's what that discussion was going to be.
All right, thank you, Jim. Any thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that one change could be is that we just do interviews once a month, maybe that, but I do like the idea of shifting the meeting a little bit as well, and also moving the interviews into the actual meeting. I think that, I think we should actually start at 7 o'clock and not at 7:30 in general, because I feel like I happen to see Westerly, and no one wants to be another community, but I think their town council starts at 6. And so I think we're one of the later ones. Mike nodded when I was just saying it's like, do most of them start at 7? So something to think about, because we get blurrier and blurrier as the evening goes on. So I would think about maybe starting at 7, maybe committing to doing the interviews only once a month unless there was like an urgent need. That way maybe it would help Nicole maybe just plan, and then we could use the other meeting to really plan for executive session to always happen, But
So
I think-
perhaps we could put this as a new business
Yeah.
item at the next meeting. We could talk through what we want to do, decide on any changes.
Yes, we can do that.
All right, we're now going to get going with the regular session here. Today is Monday, July 28th. It's a little after 7:30 p.m. First order of business, as always, is pledge of allegiance to the flag. Next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe, whose land and water we benefit from today. Next, we have the roll call.
Council President McEntee,
Here.
Council Vice President Marin,
Here.
Councilmember Bergner, Councilmember Alley. Here. Councilmember Wedgemont.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. All right, it's going to bring us to item 5, approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Motion to approve items 5A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item 6, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve item 6A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item 7, licenses. We'll take A and B together. Stephen Fox, if you're in the audience, come on up. Just going to read these items into the record. A is a resolution granting a temporary mass gathering permit to conduct the Ocean State Renaissance Fair on Friday, August 22, 2025, from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday, August 23, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sunday, August 24, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. to the Contemporary Theater Company of Wakefield, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town, application by Stephen Fox. Item B is a resolution granting a temporary mass gathering permit to conduct the Reggae Fest on Saturday, August 16, 2025, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. to the Contemporary Theater Company of Wakefield, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town, application by Stephen Fox. Stephen, welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. These 2 events are going to be wonderful. The Reggae Fest on August 16th is going to be another music festival. Last year we had the Reggae Fest in April. Obviously, some things have been under construction. There's been some changes, so our calendar is all a bit different. This year, Main Street Productions with Ken Tetzner is organizing the event in collaboration with the Contemporary Theater Company and Birch and Bay, the new restaurant. So that should be a wonderful time, music and enjoyment for everyone. And then the Ocean State Renaissance Fair the following weekend, the 22nd through the 24th, is an expansion. Last year we had a pilot program Renaissance Fair, low budget, simple, and then it was much more successful than we expected, and we applied for a grant from the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation, the placemaking grant round 2. We were awarded a grant as allowed us to expand the scope of the Renaissance Fair. The Friday night is going to be largely on the theater's performance patio on the Saugatucket River, and then the Saturday and Sunday are also going to be in Saugatucket Park. So we're going to have a setup sort of like River Fire is doing this year, where we'll have a number of vendors, we'll have performances, events. It'll be a wonderful family-friendly Renaissance Fair. We're hoping it'll bring people from around the region, around New England. Yeah. Any questions?
Good to see you, Stephen.
Hi.
I've never been to a Renaissance Fair, so I'm quite excited to try it in South Kingstown. Any jousting? Any large piece of
We are
chicken?
not having jousting, but we do have a fighting group, Black Cat Fencing,
Wow.
historical fencing, and they were actually there last year, and we're giving them a bigger stage and more opportunities for sword fighting and the like.
Excellent. Well, you're doing a great job as stewarding CDC to the future, so I'm happy to vote in favor of this.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Stephen? All right, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve items 7A and B.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Good luck. I look
Thank you
forward
very
to
much.
it. All right, that's next going to bring us to the town manager's report.
First item is an update on the school building committee. We have representatives from that will come up and give us a briefing on what's been going on. I will just add one thing. At the last school building committee last Thursday, question came up about there was a possible delay that could happen if a permit was not approved by DEM. It's called the RIPDs, which is the Rhode Island Pollution Discharge something system. So I think I got most of it right. But anyway, there was some concern that we hadn't gotten this DEM permit approved for the school as quickly as hoped. I made an inquiry to DEM just to find out where we were in the queue and when we could possibly hear. I was told that there's the reason for a delay, the past delay, was a lot of DOT projects and a lot of schools that are going up, and we're all lumped in with them. But the good news is the director said we should hear from 7 to 10 days, get their permit over the finish line along with the other schools in the state. So bring this up to you, and that was relayed to our consultants this morning, Monday morning.
Good evening. Yes, thank you. That was great news. That was relayed this morning. The DEM permit is a huge component to our critical path because all of our building permits and planning approvals are contingent upon that approval from the state. Phil Conti and Sam Hemingway, our civil engineer, have been in contact with DEM as well, have been in contact with our reviewer specifically. So it's great to hear that that's the time frame we'll be receiving comments in on our critical path that will show shortly. We're targeting about September 1st as our drop dead date for that DEM approval, so that works well within our time frame. So again, we'll take a look at our project schedule. Here we are at the end of July in our construction document period. We're right coming up on this light blue. That is our 60% construction document estimate. That is going to be, our estimating set is going to be due on August 4th. We'll have about a month and do another detailed cost estimate to be able to update this group with. So that's our next upcoming milestone, taking a look at the end of the project. Right now, we are still targeting an improved July 23rd of 2027 opening. So with that being said, in keeping of that July 23rd date, we have our critical path items. We do have the negotiation period for our draft GMP for early bid package 1. We have started looking at some draft contract language. All of the bidders are in the process of being scope reviewed. So all of their bids are being reviewed and interviewed with the all of the bidders for early bid package number 1. We are looking at getting best and finals from a majority of them Wednesday and a few of them on Friday. So that's important as we get a little bit further down. We're going to be looking for that approval from this council on August 12th. That's one of our next really big milestones. That's when we'll have a firm idea of where we are with our site work, our structural. It's about 30% of the overall project budget that we'll have locked in numbers for by August 12th. So another big milestone for us. As we get ready to start that work, 8.1 is the foundations permit application where our team is going to be submitting the permit to the building department. We are looking for a 9.1 approval for our building department, which is why that RIPD's date is so important. We are requesting that the building department start their review, and then everything will be queued up and ready to go once we receive the RIPD's permit from RIDEM, and they'll be able to stamp our permit and we'll be on our way. So with that, we are looking to give our notice to proceed for that construction work on 8/13 in order to start our foundation work on at the end of September is when we're looking to start excavating for foundations. Taking a look at just visually kind of where we are right now, early bid package 1, one of our next really big milestones we have coming up on August 4th. Next week, we are starting the temporary roadway construction. We're waiting for temporary power to be scheduled with Rhode Island Energy, as well as the internet. Those are two items that are, again, outside of our control. We're in constant communication. Service agreements have been signed. Payments are being sent for the temporary power. And now we are going to be working with Rhode Island Energy to see how well they can fit within our time frame. All right, taking a look at just kind of some of the big things that we've got going on. The design development comments from RIDE have been received. We've been actively working on a response, which will be submitted in the next day or two back to RIDE. And we should expect a pretty quick approval for the design development phase after that is received. We did submit the enabling site work. That's the work that is happening on August 4th. That was already approved. We have also submitted early bid package number 1 to them for the foundations and structural and long lead time items as well. Additional soil borings, just to bring everybody back, we had done some soil testing. There was one location we had noted with some elevated levels of TPH, which is a petroleum product. It was about 7 to 8 feet in the ground. So we had our environmental engineer come back, do a few other borings in that area to identify the perimeter of where that contamination stops. They have identified it. It's a pretty small area, and we're currently working with our environmental engineer to have a meeting with RIDEM to understand how we approach this. This is an area where we are building up the site, not going down. So we're working with RIDEM and our environmental engineers to come up with a full soil plan to deal with those contaminants. Again, Rhode Island Energy finalized their design. We are waiting on them to put us on their schedule at the moment. As far as Curtis Corner goes, we are finalizing demolition plans for the existing Curtis Corner Middle School. It's been a while since we've talked about Curtis Corner, so we want to bring you up to speed a little bit about what's been happening behind the scenes. There have been several meetings on site to determine the extent of demolition of the existing Curtis Corner Middle School building. Rather than raising the entire building, a small section will be kept. So the walkthrough was meant to really fine-tune which portions are kept. What does that mean for our power refeed? Our concession stand is currently powered through the existing Curtis Corner Middle School for the athletic program. So that work is underway. We are looking to get that out to bid in the next 2 months or so and solidify that scope of work for the demolition and clearing of that field, while the remainder of the project is still under design. We have the civil engineer taking a look at some efficiencies, reusing of light poles, bringing the field up a little bit more to reuse some of the soils that we have from the high school project as well. So looking at some of those efficiencies to help keep that cost manageable and get, still that solid athletic program on that field. And then another item that we are currently working on that we'll be bringing to this group on the 12th of August is a process for change order approval. During these types of construction projects, change orders are a very normal part of the process. There are change orders that are within the scope of the construction contract, that's covered by the contractor's contingency, and then there are changes that are outside of the scope of the contract. Those will be changes to whatever is in the bidding documents, whether it's from an unforeseen condition, if we run into something on the site that through all of our due diligence we didn't find, whether it is a request from the authority having jurisdiction, so if the fire marshal wants to put a few more sprinkler heads or exit signs, that would be a change order. If there is a coordination issue between multiple trades in our drawings, whether it's an issue between the architectural and the structural or the fire protection and the structural, that would be a change to the contract. Not all changes are adds. Some of them are also deducts. But we need to work on what the process for approval is, because it's typically something that needs to be decided in a relatively quick fashion. We also don't want to bog down each of these meetings going through dozens of change orders. So we're working on a process right now for streamlining an approval process, maybe establishing a task force, and then reporting back for final approval for change orders under a certain amount to town council. So that process is being developed at the moment for us to present to this group for approval on 8/12. So pretty quick update this week. So Councilwoman Bergner has her hand up.
Yeah, I did a bunch of house cleaning and organization of my town council stuff, and I came across, and I let Kate know, so you kind of know what I'm going to ask.
Yes.
So I came across a previous budget summary document, and I know it's very old, but my original notes, the reason why it stuck out to me to go back is a couple of meetings ago, we had a conversation with someone who was concerned about the size of the high school, and I said, I feel like it's grown about 10,000 square feet because the current design is 155,000 square feet. And I don't know why I said I felt like it is, but then my notes actually show that at some point, Chris, you must have presented
So,
that the high school was 143,900 square feet. So I'm just trying to have you explain where that grew, and maybe I'm wrong.
so I think the document that you're referencing is a document dated 10/19.
Yeah.
So that is, if you remember, back in October, Left Field was making a case that the bond that you needed to fully fund this high school needed to be $150 million, not $125 million. At that time, we prepared this, which is a budget estimate, basically arguing where we believed we saw costs, and we added a bunch of placeholders, including the numbers $765 a square foot
Right.
and 143,000 square feet. That was the basis of our long estimate, which you see got you to 153 million. We said we could get it to 150 million, which is where we are today, right at $150 million minus, well, the contingency is included in that. The actual design as submitted in stage 2 was actually 149,000 square feet. So
Okay.
we were taking a look at the economic data at that time and saying, if it's $765 a square feet, it needs to be 143,000 square feet. Since that time, obviously, we're closer to the point of construction than we were back in October. We have a better control over what market conditions look like, things like that. And we've had an additional complete rounds of visioning with the teachers, the educators, the administrators, the public and stakeholders. So the design today reflects that additional visioning. I think because we were able to plan well back in October at that $150 million, the size of the building has changed somewhat, the cost per square foot has gone down somewhat, and the cost of our soft costs, what we're allocating to specific areas, that has all been finalized as well, because we now have actually bid those services out as opposed to having placeholders. So the 143,000 was a budgetary tool that we used, assuming $765 a square foot, as an argument to say that $150 million was needed, not $125 million back in October.
Okay, so it has grown or has not grown in size?
It's grown in size.
Kate was saying it's grown in size.
Yes.
So that number was not based on a design, that was a placeholder for square footage.
Okay.
So after all of the, as Chris mentioned, the visioning sessions happened, we met with teachers, the CTE program was expanded. The actual need of the program and of the school
Right.
is that higher number.
Well, and I can't remember if the auditorium back at this time was 2-story, so
Yeah,
it
it
wasn't.
hadn't been designed yet.
Correct.
So it was just
Right.
an estimate of, a building for this many students
Right.
could be about this size.
I was just sort of puzzling it out because I knew it had grown about 10,000 square feet, but I started to say, as I was cleaning, I'm like, well, the second-story auditorium is one addition, is that,
Yeah.
a couple thousand square feet?
So from the stage 2 submission, which was 149,225 feet, it has grown. Yes, the size of the
grown.
building has increased, yes.
But you're still, even, and then I'm just going to repeat it, the size, it has grown, but the cost remains 150 million or less.
Yes.
Okay. I just thought, I was like, wow, I took notes and,
No, and if anyone's interested, that's all available on the project website. That's actually where I pulled the information as well. So if
Okay.
anybody wants to do a deeper dive, those documents are in the document library under the archive section, which is basically everything prior to 2025.
and regarding the change order process, is that something that you are leaning towards the school building committee to authorize?
We have not gotten that far yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are meeting at 8:30 in the morning on Thursdays. Will that change at the end of the summer back to an evening time? Because
I do
people-
believe so, yes.
Because it's very hard if people have employment at that time to attend the meeting, and they can only watch after the fact.
Yes.
So after Labor Day?
That's what they did last year.
What'd you say?
That's what they did last year, was they had the 8:30s in the summer, and then as soon as school started back up and school employees were here for full days, they switched it back to evening.
Okay, thank you.
Question on the change order process that you'll be presenting to us at the next meeting here. Now, Is there like a typical way by which change orders are approved? I mean, there's been several other municipalities who have, completed a high school at this point. There was a need to sort of expedite any change orders for them, I assume. Can you sort of talk a little bit about the processes used by those other municipalities?
So in my experience with other municipalities, it's a wide range. Every community approaches change orders differently. Some are approved by the building committee, some are approved by a subcommittee or a task force, some are approved by a town manager. So it really depends on the process that the town adopts. The fiscal oversight is run through the town council, which is why any changes to the contract should flow through the town council, which they ultimately will. We want to establish what the process for reviewing them ahead of time looks like. So we're not digging into the details every 2 weeks at this meeting and having your committee here till 1 o'clock in the morning. We want to be efficient with everybody's time.
So the change order process will be adopted by the council?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so. And Kate's absolutely right. In Rhode Island especially, there is no set path forward. I think it's up to what the town manager, the school building committee, the town council's comfort level is. But the bottom line is decisions will have to be made very quickly. And in some of those cases, either if there's not a process set up and everything is going to the town council, then we'll be calling a lot of special meetings with the town council.
So it really comes down to how much control we want versus how much deference we're willing to give.
I think you have a school building committee, but what that process is not laid out, and we'll explore every single option available.
Right.
And it really is going to be a draft that we bring in front of this committee. It's very much open for discussion. It's not going to be a mandate that we bring before you.
And you're looking for that from us at the next meeting?
We're going to present it to you
You're
at the
gonna make
next
a
meeting.
recommendation?
Yes, we're not starting construction in earnest until September, so we've got a little bit of time
Right.
to be able to sit and review this process with the council and make any adjustments if necessary.
And this recommendation will come from the school building committee, or will come from your office left field?
So I'm drafting the document. We'll review it with the school building committee. We're going to review it in the OAC meeting, and then we're going to review it in the school building committee, and then they'll make a recommendation to bring it in front of council.
Got it. Go ahead.
Thank you. If you could just provide some context when you present that change order process, so like this is addressing like a challenge faced at another municipality, so we made this tweak so that we could understand, because if we're just looking at what you create, it's hard to know like lessons learned from project A and B. Are you planning to go in that?
Yeah, happy to do that. Yes.
Because I think, just like the last meeting when we talked about the abutters survey, there was some lessons learned, and so that maybe it makes people do the abutters survey that they might not have done in the past. So just like that, whatever lessons learned maybe from either Newport or
Yes.
Lincoln or North Kingstown or wherever you've worked, that would be helpful so that we would feel like we learned from those hard lessons.
Yeah, so the document that I'm going to draft is based on all of those lessons learned, because I have several versions of different drafts I've made for different communities, and it evolves and grows based on those lessons learned and what ultimately leads to the most successful project and keeping things moving efficiently and keeping everybody informed.
Thank you.
Good. Without holding you to a guarantee from a state bureaucracy, because nobody should ever do that, it sounds like from your report, you're fairly confident that RIDE's going to approve this in a timely manner? The design development phase?
Yes.
Thanks.
The important part of is that we've received approval to move forward with the work that we currently need. That gives us time as well. So RIDE will, if worst comes to worst, RIDE will keep approving smaller bits of work until you have the final approval. That's not what we want to do here. But we've got all of our approvals and to secure reimbursement, especially for this phase of work that we have upcoming.
At the last meeting, we asked to see some of RIDE's feedback or comments, and we didn't get them. I apologize. That's okay. Do you think we'll get them soon?
Yes, I can send them this week. I apologize.
That's okay. I did a double take of my email, and I don't see it. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Kate, thank you, Chris. Jim, we can go on to the next item.
Plan Planning Director Jamie Rabbit will discuss the Old Tower Hill Road Revitalization Plan and Form-Based Code. It was requested to be in the Town Manager's Report by Councilmember Bergner.
Thank you, Mr. Manny. With regards to Old Tower Hill Road Revitalization Plan and Form-Based Code, first and foremost, we are having a public presentation workshop Wednesday evening, starting at 6:30 p.m. We intend to kind of wrap it up at 8:30, but we'll be here a little bit longer if necessary. Able City East, our planning consultant and urban design team, will be here for that presentation. They're also within the community Wednesday and Thursday, and they'll be meeting with staff and potential property owners within the district. So I'm prepared to go as in-depth as you want me to, or I know Ms. Bergner put this on the agenda, requested it, so I guess how deep do you want me to dive?
I think we should go pretty deep here. This is one of our identified top 5 goals and objectives. We know that, the planning department received an award, related to, the output material that they produced related to this. And here we are, trying to move forward with this, but give us an update as to what's next. If we can, in fact, adopt an ordinance allowing for mixed use on Old Tower Hill Road, how long would that take? What are we looking at as far as timeline and what steps next to get to that point?
So just as a reminder, this is our, sorry, come back up here. I'm used to not having to put a code in. Now it's not going to let me put a code in. There we go. So as I mentioned, just a reminder, there is a public code workshop associated with the form-based code for Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. This says 6 p.m., but again, our PR stuff that went out was at 6:30. We understand that the town council has certain commitments during the day, so we wanted to push it back half an hour to potentially allow members of the council to attend in a more readily available standpoint. This is part of the Old Tower Hill Road Neighborhood Plan. It was an initiative by the Economic Development Commission as well as the Planning Board, supported by Town Council, about looking at development alternatives for Old Tower Hill Road and increasing density in a mixed-use, more dense form that allows first floor office, retail, commercial space, second, third, fourth floor residential, to increase the residential footprint within that commercial zone, transition from the standard 1960, 1970 automobile-orientated development style and pattern where cars are up front, buildings are in the back. Some of the buildings you could say are devoid of architecture, they're of that period, and the automobile served the primary purpose to get you to your destination. The intent of the form-based code is to look at developing a vibrant mixed-use community that is walkable and built in the public realm. So there's open spaces, public spaces, walkability, sidewalks, street trees, aesthetically pleasing on the architectural side, and potentially incorporates multi-transit orientated between walking, biking, vehicle, and transit development. Understanding that RIPTA is proposing to make some significant cuts in town. There's also a public hearing Wednesday afternoon in the town hall on that. So again, we're looking to reformat a traditional Euclidean zoning where it's pyramidal separation of uses, where commercial wasn't mixed with residential, office space wasn't with commercial or residential, putting things in one use, but also defining the density and defining the shape and style of the buildings. So just looking at one of the illustrative plans that came out of our work we did in 2024 about the potential development opportunities in the community. One of the strong aspects of coming up with the form-based code is giving landowners opportunities within the community to increase the development potential of their land. In some aspects, if you look at our existing zoning code and you had a 2-acre parcel of land, you're really only allowed to develop 30% of that with front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, parking requirements, and then there's no orientation associated with things belong. As long as you're building it within the setbacks, pretty much the development community can decide to put their building in the back, put all the parking up front, minimize the landscaping, have it devoid of being South Kingstown kind of architecturally appropriate, and just bring in corporate architecture to the community, because this community at the present time has minimal say on the appearance of a building. We have regulatory guidance with regards to landscaping, but as far as parking layout, where parking should be, the style of the building, the shape of the building, the fenestration on the building, we have very limited ability to guide that. So again, I'm just going through really quick. This is one quick rendering of Bank of America on the corner of Kingston and Main Street and Old Tower Hill Road. And this was a rendering from last year about the redevelopment of that site. So again, there are opportunities, and the opportunity for the landowner is to increase the density, therefore increasing the value or the ROI, return on investment, by reinvesting in their property and increasing the density, but also adding that residential component, which should be built in a vibrant, walkable setting. And again, this is just a couple of slides from, this is just the backside, of the Cavadas property, where the multi-purpose trail runs through, which in reality, everyone will say, well, why do we turn our back on the multi-purpose trail? Well, it wasn't always a multi-purpose trail, it was a rail line. And in most instances, you didn't want your front door overlooking the rail line, you put your back of house up. But since that kind of mindset has changed, you would, if you did it now, you reorientate your development towards the attractive feature that you're near. So again, it's looking at reorientating buildings and allowing buildings to be reorientated towards public assets. Again, the primary goal is to create a walkable public realm by regulating the form of buildings, streets, and public places. So the primary criteria, we've heard some feedback about how stringent are you going to be on the public forum, and I'm just going to switch PowerPoints here for a moment. And just bear with me, because everybody's familiar with this kind of picture, right? This is that traditional Euclidean zoning from 1960 and 1970. Old Tower Hill Road quite isn't to this extent, but that's what a form-based code gets you away from. And the concern we have is a form-based code, if you just do the density and the building blocks, you may get architecture that looks like this because it meets the height criteria, it meets the fenestration on the building, it meets the articulation of horizontal and vertical planes for the building, but it may not be architecture you're looking for in your community. It may be too tall, so you want it reduced to 3 stories. It could look like that, which is more Pacific Northwest. So some of the aspects is we can tell the developer from a code standpoint of what the shape of the shoebox is and how the building needs to move up, down, in, and out. But if you don't start to articulate some of the goals of what you want your building to look like, you're potentially going to get these as results. But we still want to leave it open enough so there's a modern interpretation of a historic vernacular. So, you have shingle-sided buildings this town. You have clapboard type buildings. You want the flexibility so that it doesn't look like, I think the term's used as a Hollywood set or Main Street in Disney World, but you don't necessarily want it to look, and I think I have another, here's a modern interpretation of historic architecture. Another interpretation of historic architecture. and we just go through it. Again, this is just some examples of, there's a public street, a public sidewalk, and then private space, but they're integrated. I think our zoning code, the way it's written, and it's not South Kingstown zoning code, it's the zoning codes written through Euclidean type regulations from 1950, 60, 70, and on, that necessarily enabling legislation didn't allow you to move to the form-based code and articulate things that you want. The form-based code pretty much drives a product that you've pre-articulated that you're looking for, versus a traditional zoning code just says, this use is allowed here. We're less concerned about what the building looks like, what the landscaping is, and where the parking goes. Form-based code says we're a little less concerned about the use, we're more concerned about the placement of the building, we're more concerned about what the building looks like, we're more concerned about the interrelationship between the building and the public space, the sidewalk, the public areas, and the landscaping, lighting. But again, we don't want to be so stringent that all sidewalks have to be brick, all hedges have to be boxwoods, all posts have to be granite posts 3 by 4 by 6. Again, giving the ability to have a little bit of flexibility. Someone will say that this is a fairly nice main street, minus the fact that the pavement maybe needs a little refresh. But this actually isn't a main street at all. This is a modern development in Mashpee, Massachusetts, which is called Mashpee Commons, made to replicate, but they had stringent design standards that showed what a main street should look like. It still isn't necessarily a cookie cutter, but I still think you can improve upon places like this. Again, this is a better version of a corner of Main Street. So the form-based code is driving you in the direction of this, but it's also offering developers some flexibility, but also driving, kind of keeping them within guardrails. We look at the form-based code as developing the guardrails to keep people on the road to the path that the town has predetermined they want them to get to. So that's kind of flying at 10,000 feet quickly. I'm available for questions.
So Jamie, my question is, I think we understand form-based code. I think we've had some meetings on that, joint with the planning board, the outsourced architect that we've been working with on this, Jason King. He's been good at presenting, explaining what form-based code is. And I think it's clear, we all agree of what we're trying to achieve with this. But we had a charrette in March 2024. Here we are talking about form-based code again, looking at pictures I believe we've already seen, and we have another charrette scheduled for this week. Is that just a sort of continuation of the last charrette, or what are we going to achieve with this new charrette here?
So with the new charrette, what we have is an actual presentation of the code. So Able City East, both Pam Stacy King and Jason King will be able to walk the community through the code and actually look at the regulatory implications. There are 4 transects within the code right now, 2 kind of residentially structured and 2 commercial structures. And you can look at them as small building blocks. You start as kind of 1-story, 1.5-story residential, you bump that up to 2.5-story residential, then you get into your mixed-use residential at 3 to 4 stories, and then you get into your gateway, which is higher, taller, and more dense. So again, there's structure to that. We need to explain that to the community. I had a conversation with a gentleman who came into our office who said, I'm concerned about the form-based code. I own a residential property, and there's now going to be this form-based code in big buildings next to me, and I'm not sure I want commercial across the street from him. After looking at where he lived across the street from Highway Commercial, which had minimum restrictions on what could be developed there, no architectural standards, no direction on the placement of the building, minimal separation, no public realm requirements as far as spaces. So after having an explanation with him, I'm not sure he was convinced, but he understood what the form-based code was trying to portray as an end product versus the uncertainty of the existing code that the town has. the town has been relatively successful getting decent development with not all of those regulatory standards that you would want in your toolbox. So this is a further explanation of what ultimately the town council will be looking at and being asked to vote on and adopt in the code.
All right,
So
one last
it's the
follow-up.
next step in the process.
All right.
So I know you presented to the planning board a couple of weeks ago. That's what sort of prompted to invite you to come back and sort of explain where we are. But as I recall, months ago, I thought they were working on writing the code, working on the revisions. We added additional money to their contract, so they, right?
Yes.
Am I following?
Yes, so we actually have a draft code.
Okay.
That's available, and that has been submitted to the planning board.
Okay. Have we been given a copy of that?
I believe you were sent access to it 3-4 weeks ago.
Okay.
It was sent
And
out
that
in an
code is
email.
what's going to be reviewed on Wednesday with the residents?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
And so, and then I also recall Pete DiStefano on the planning board talking at that same meeting where we met with the planning board about this, and said that we needed to also, there were other things we could do in the interim, like revising the parking regs and all of those things. Is that my?
There are different components to the form-based code. So
Okay.
there is building structure and typology, there is landscape requirements, there are parking requirements, there are architectural standards or guidelines, and there are also public realm and public spaces guidelines. So we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago at a planning board meeting about looking very closely at Old Tower Hill Road and the fact that it's, in most instances, 2 lanes, well, 1 lane, I gotta get my orientation right, eastbound, westbound, with a center turning lane for most of it. There are turning lanes at intersections, but you only have a 5-foot sidewalk. In most instances, if you have a 5-foot sidewalk, the original code, I think, had a building set back about 10 feet from that, which didn't leave a lot of room from the edge of a sidewalk to the beginning of a building for public space and the potential expansion of a sidewalk. There was discussion about whether a 5-foot sidewalk is adequate enough next to a car that may be traveling 35 miles an hour, and whether the pedestrian feels safe. So we're looking at potentially modifying that to push the buildings a little bit further back to allow a little bit more transitional space that will be in the semi-public, semi-private realm in order to perhaps accommodate an additional width to a sidewalk. So if you added 2 feet to a 5-foot sidewalk, in essence, you now have a 7-foot sidewalk and people don't have to use the first 2 feet that is right next to the traveled lane.
So
We're refining things to that level of detail.
Thank you. Just one quick question, and I think this would be helpful for all of us. After the presentation on the 30th, walk me through like the next steps. Like, does it go back to the planning board? Does it come back to us? Like, and then when could we, what else needs to happen? I guess because all of these things, these consultants come, they present, and then nobody says, these are the sequence of things that you should take this up on. So I think we don't understand where it goes next.
That's part of the presentation. Wednesday night is kind of where we are and what the next steps are. In our contract, Able City East, and I'm going from memory a little bit, was delivering a final draft, I think in the 4 to 5 month time frame. So we signed a contract middle of June, so October, November, they should have a final draft of a form-based code that is, in essence, ready for review by planning, final review by planning board and town council, and potentially go to that order of notice and then public hearing process for actual adoption of the code.
So that'll be after the architects have taken into account any feedback from the residents at the meeting on Wednesday, the 30th?
Correct. We are also looking and trying to reach out to 1 or 2, 3 existing commercial property owners in the district so that we can look at their properties more closely and in essence vet the code on 1 or 2 properties. We do have what's called code testing within our contract. If someone doesn't come forward, we will pick 1 or 2 properties where we will actually code test, which means come up with a development scenario for those properties and test the code against it to make sure we're not missing anything and the actual administration of the code meets with a potential development that is realistic.
All
One
right.
more time,
Patty, I
Patty.
know you got
One
some
more
questions.
time. I just want to follow up on my timelines,
All right,
just
go
because
ahead.
it's, so basically what you're saying is feedback on July 30th. They're going to write and present something again in October. They'll submit some revisions to the code.
Yes.
We receive it, the planning board takes it up, makes any adjustments, then they forward it to us. We set an order of notice, we have a public hearing, and then it gets enacted.
Correct.
Okay, so that's like 6 or 7 months from right now. This is like budget season, we're in February.
The goal would be passed in the 2025 calendar year.
No, there's no way.
Is that possible? Sounds
No.
possible from the timeline you outlined.
Absolutely not, Rory.
Gloria, you always put me on the spot. Again, I don't want to
It's not
overpromise
gonna
and
happen.
underdeliver. A lot of it, we'll know more after Wednesday night. And
Okay.
what the community feedback is and what the potential partners are in any commercial properties that come forward for us to code test.
All right, you know what we
And
should do? We should do an update at the next meeting, town manager's report, as to how the meeting went Wednesday night and the steps
Right.
forward from there. But I know Patty has some questions. Go ahead.
So my perspective on all of this is probably completely different just because of my life experience, and that is because I lived in Florida for most of the 90s and the early 2000s, and Able City East worked on the place where we built our first business, which was Seaside, Florida. And many of the clients on Able City East's list of projects that they've done, Rosemary Beach, Watercolors, Alice Beach, those were all places that my husband and I, our business, Fancy Tomato, served. Also, he was recruited by Disney, so we were also there during the time that Celebration and Reunion were planned. And we did own property in the Panhandle area until 2022. So I've seen all of these things, and driving back and forth. I just want to make sure that South Kingstown feels like South Kingstown, and it doesn't feel like some Florida company's idea of what we should look like. So in looking at some of these things, like in particular, next to Quo Vadis, where I actually had my business, Patty Cakes, for like 7 years. This just doesn't resemble South Kingstown to me. So that's my biggest concern, that we don't just end up homogenized, or that we don't just open ourselves up for like massive developers, for private equity trusts that are gonna sort of take these very generic looking buildings and just bring in these developments. And then like what happened to many businesses that I know, you get in there and then your lease goes up because it's a giant conglomerate. And so I feel that we're in a position here in South Kingstown where those types of companies and actors really want what we have, and I just want to make sure that we retain a sense of place. And so to that point, I just have some concerns.
No, I think Councilwoman Alley brings up a very significant point, and it's a fine balance. And I absolutely agree with you that there's a balance between making it look like Anywhere USA and then making it South Kingstown appropriate. And I I use the terminology of guardrails. You have to make the guardrails sufficient enough to keep the car on the road, because if you don't, this next photo meets a form-based code. But I'm sure you'd be very upset with the planning department if a developer came in and proposed to build that apartment complex. If you notice, the top of the roof line has multiple changes in elevation. They did some window projections and simple awnings, and if you notice, the vertical elements of the building do project. They project about 6 inches. But that building meets a form-based code written in a community. Where that community failed is the architectural standards.
So like for me, the Nantucket version is looks a little bit more like South Kingstown than.
And again, that's where.
At least it's cute. It doesn't look like a giant thing.
And then it's a balance of some, and we've talked to the developer that the pictures they're using right now need to be refined so that there's clear direction to whoever's applying under the form-based code that here is what you're looking for an end product. So that we're looking more like buildings that may be of this style. And this is presentations I went through the planning board over the last 2 years of going through the likes and dislikes on the side of architectural and building fenestration to try and understand what the planning board's visions of an attractive building were in town. And we went through probably 6 or 7 hours of likes and dislikes to try and articulate that. We're refined. That's exactly what we need to do with our developer our consultant in the next few is drill down and refine, to your point, Councilwoman Alley, to be able to articulate what the vision is so that when you have applications, we're not fighting with a developer that their interpretation of our code. I'll go back to, if I showed you this photo, which is from Georgetown in DC, that you don't end up getting this building. If you look at the roof lines, if you write a code, someone can interpret it to be that. And we want to make sure, from my perspective, I think, and if everyone nods, that you'd be upset if that was an end product.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want that as an end product, but I really just want it to look like South Kingstown.
That's our goal.
Well, I think that there's members of the planning board that really do represent that point of view. I'm sure you watch the planning board and you see that element always gets captured. I think people do talk about that vibe.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jamie, I read this great article a long time ago, and I couldn't remember it, but why every city feels the same now. It's in the Atlantic, and it talks about how the glass monoliths in the New Age building makes everywhere you go in America kind of feel like you're in the same place. And I think that's something very unique about South Kingstown is the uniqueness of our town, right? The old structures that we've kept. And I would say that I'm glad that you mentioned that you're going to go back and ask them to update the illustrative plan, because when I look at the overlay map of the existing conditions versus the illustrative plan of where existing buildings are and proposed buildings, you have the post office just becoming housing in there, right? You have other places, density off of MacArthur, right, that would probably have some pushback from the community in there, that area, right, small bedroom community. And so I'd be interested to see where that illustrative plan gets updated, right? I would be shocked to see if the Bank of America parking lot became a walk-through area, just from my history of it. And South Kingstown does approve bad-looking buildings sometimes. I would point to the Centerville Bank on Main Street. Sticks out like a sore thumb in the middle of Main Street. No. It's not Centerville? Sorry, Centerville. But whatever yellow bank that is, right? If we could go back and do it again, I'd be like, hey, let's build something that matches Main Street, right? And it kind of sticks out. So to echo Councilwoman Alley's point, strict what we want, and I'm looking forward to seeing the progress you make. Thank you.
And again, I use the term, and this is one of my mentors that has drilled this into my head in multiple conversations, is again that modern interpretation of a historic vernacular. You do have modern building materials. You do have, to Councilwoman Alley's point, and Bergner as well as Wedgemont, that you don't want it to look like Anywhere USA, so you need a little bit of flexibility. You have an eclectic mix of architecture. I can't pick, if you go down Main Street, you can't pick one type of architecture. You have cottage, you have, purple buildings, you have buildings clad in metal, you have brick, you have clapboards, you have cedar shakes. There's a mix there. You have 1 story, 1.5 story, 4 stories. There's that unique mix. But again, we have to develop the guardrails. I think we need to work a little harder on that. We're at the beginning phases of that, and this is where we're drilling down to try and refine the end product. This is part of the process.
All right. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie, for this. I appreciate it. And I also think the other rows of this is that we've promoted the work session on the 30th at 6:30 in Town Hall. For anyone who's watching, if we didn't have this sort of update from you, people wouldn't know that they have the opportunity to participate and give input on Wednesday. So there's the rows there for you. Thank you.
We did.
Yes, please attend.
We did send out over 300 personal invites to property owners within the study area.
All right.
Do
Thank
you
you,
know
Jamie.
if you invited the planning board or the zoning board or the historic district commission or any other board members?
Notices went out to boards and commission. They've been made
Okay.
aware of this over months
Okay,
with regards to the hold this date.
thank you.
All right. All right, Jim, what else we got? Town manager's report?
The last item is the discussion, Chief Moynihan will brief us on the discussion of traffic safety concerns on Liberty Lane and Woodruff Avenue.
Good evening, council members. So Liberty Lane was back in February. We had conducted a study, and it was on the agenda a couple times. We ran out of time and never got to the actual findings from the traffic study. So we put it back on to go through it. And then also, I can give you a briefing of Woodruff Ave. We had a meeting last Thursday with some residents from Woodruff Ave. And this is following the stop sign installation, but still some complaints about speed and volume of vehicles on Woodruff Ave. So Liberty Lane, we'll go through it. Over a 9-day period in February, from February 10th to February 19th, we deployed at 2 different locations a covert speed detecting device. So it wasn't, as we saw up in Woodruff Ave, something, a flashing sign. These were didn't give any indication to the motorists that speeds or volume were being captured. Over that 9-day period, one of the studies was done on the end by Route 2, so right in the area of 1081 to 1095, or 1095 Liberty Lane. So that's before you come to the major curve if you came in from South County Trail heading eastbound. So about halfway down in that section. So there's a good area of a straightaway. We saw 5,828 vehicles during that 9-day period, and so an average of 663 vehicles. The volume of those vehicles came in between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. That's when the most traffic was captured. The average speed was 32.5 miles an hour, but that's not really indicative of what the majority of the vehicles are traveling. The 85th percentile was surprisingly to be 38 miles an hour. So that's opposed to 25 mile an hour zone. So, looking at that, out of 100 vehicles, 85 of them are traveling in excess of the posted speed limit, either at that speed of 38 miles an hour or below. Surprisingly, we had the highest speed captured was heading inbound, so it would have been coming in from Route 2. In that stretch was 75 miles an hour, which is extremely high. One vehicle that was traveling at that rate. If we broke it down about inbound and outbound traffic, so either east or west in that area, it's approximately the same, about 2,700 vehicles heading out towards South County Trail with 3,100 vehicles traveling in. So What we're seeing there is just a lot of commuting traffic coming in off of Route 2. It is a cut-through. You can to cut through and taking that all the way up to Fairgrounds, up to 138. But I think a lot of the industry that's on that road is a lot of the traffic that we're seeing. The next location that we captured was right in the vicinity of 844 Liberty Lane, so this would be further down towards Modine Manufacturing. Again, a straightaway area that we wanted to capture the speeds when the vehicles would probably be traveling at the quickest. We saw our total vehicles over that 9-day period of 5,800 vehicles with an average of 653 vehicles a day. Again, the average speed was 37 miles an hour with the 85th percentile up to 41 miles an hour. So we have 41 down on the Modine side as the 85th and 38 on the Route 2 side. And again, we did capture a vehicle going 74 miles an hour in that area as well. Same thing with the peak volume between the daytime hours of 8 and 4 or 8 and 5 p.m. So as far as following this study, we've increased our enforcement there, but more needs to be done. Just like we've had many concerns throughout the town in many of the areas, but we do utilize traffic enforcement when time allows to put them in there, but I think more needs to be done to kind of capture these speeds. We want to do outreach to the businesses as well to let them know, because we think a lot of it is coming, obviously from people coming into town to travel down to those businesses, and try to do outreach to let them know and educate them. Speed feedback signs, I think, would be very valuable to this area. It's just coming from South County Trail, when you take that turn out on Route 2, it's 45 miles an hour. There's cars that are traveling well in excess of that, and then they hit that corner and go right around. We did ask DOT with some painting on Route 2 to try to make it more of a 90-degree turn, but it's more of a merge when you hit Liberty Lane. I think that causes a lot of problems with the speed. So long term, I think we could look at and speak with, look at the engineering of the road and see if anything more can be done to try to lessen those speeds in the straightaway areas. So any questions you have there?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Chief, it seems like a lot of cars. What is a normal, do we have a data point of how many cars are on like a similar road in South Kingstown? Is this a higher number? It seems like it.
We can switch to Woodruff, or, and I'll just put that in comparison.
Sure,
so
yeah.
Woodruff Ave, we did a 5-day, the time period between July 18th and July 23rd. Since the last meeting, we had 12,000 vehicles there. So a daily of about 2,500.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 12,000 compared to the 5,800.
Well, I'm glad to hear the results of this because our constituents who came out and were telling us about this, it seems like the data is correlating with that. So constituents, thank you for coming out and telling us about that. And I think we've got some work to do, but I appreciate the SKPD doing this for us. Thank you.
Yes.
So those, you said the word speed something, lighted speed, I forget what you call them, the trailer.
The speed feedback signs?
Yes.
Okay.
We have 2 of those?
We have 2 that, one we're looking to install on Woodruff Ave, and then we have another one that we'd be looking to install.
Do you think that in future budgets, you would budget for additional ones? Would it be helpful if we prioritize purchase of those?
Yes, and I think we can talk more about that. I'll cover the Woodruff Ave, but they're about $7,000 each to go up. Problem with Liberty Lane is they're solar powered, so there's a lot of tree cover in that area. We'd have to just find the right spot. Obviously, you don't want to put it on a bend and want it on the straightaway, but that would be one challenge that we'd be looking at in that area.
So will you, in the next budget cycle, think about maybe increasing, maybe adding 1 or 2? I don't know.
that was part of the discussion we had last Thursday with Woodruff residents, is really looking at a traffic commission and looking whether it's through CIP to kind of fund initiatives like that, and look at increasing our signage with possibly feedback signs, which would be helpful.
I'm wondering also, like, maybe this is a low-tech, high-tech thing, but because students probably are using Waze, and that's, maybe shaves off 2 or 3 minutes of your commute to URI, is there a way to sort of jerry-rig that where your residents sort of say, police reported here, so
Yes.
that...
Unfortunately not. We're not able to do that. I think a biggest, where we're seeing the biggest problem with Waze redirecting is Middlebridge. That was a lot of the
it's crazy.
complaints there, is when the traffic lights are backed up with beach traffic, it's directing everyone down Bridgetown and over around Middlebridge.
So is there anything to be done to sort of manipulate Waze from sending people that way?
No, Waze, my understanding of Waze is it's collecting data based on vehicles that are traveling in the area. So if cars are on Liberty Lane and they're getting from point A to B, and it's more timely than going around, then it's going to redirect them that way. That's the whole basis of what the app does.
But if you tell Waze, police are here, then the next person is alerted, police reported ahead, and then everybody slows down.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work, how you do that.
Well, a resident could do
Report
that.
them.
A resident could drive and use Waze.
That's what I'm saying, we could take turns. But I think you can...
It's a low-tech, high-tech way to slow people down.
I mean, you're not wrong, but can't a municipality go in there and say, please don't direct traffic to Middlebridge because we have a lot of fatalities there? Or we're having a lot of... We can't do that?
I don't see us being able to control that. I mean, Waze is a public application that people use.
Right.
Go ahead.
Chief, with respect to the survey of speeders on Liberty Lane, I know you have a couple of different methods of doing it. Was this a speed sign that they could see oncoming?
No, this was a covert.
That was covert.
Yeah, so that was different than what we saw on Woodruff.
Woodruff, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chief, is the stop sign on Woodruff helping?
So let's move to that. So Woodruff, again, we put the stop sign out there. We heard some concerns from residents that speeds were still increasing. Actually, some said it was even worse, which was surprising to me. We put a speed feedback sign, and what we saw was in that 5-day period, 12,872 vehicles. Average overall speed was 25.8 miles an hour. We had only 13% of the vehicles out of that 12,000 that were 30 miles an hour or more. So I would say that we're doing well there. That was only one location where that speed feedback sign is. I think my next suggestion would be is us to capture data with a covert device at a different location and see how much the stop sign really has impacted that area. But there's a lot, I think there was some getting used to the stop sign there, but now with the stop sign that is there, I think vehicles are slowing down. Concern is there's a lot of traffic. You look at that 12,000, almost 13,000 vehicles that are coming through there over a 5-day period. That's a lot of vehicles coming through. It's a tight roadway, so when the residents are walking, and cars are zipping by at 30 miles an hour or 28 miles an hour, that's fast. When there's no sidewalks and not much of a shoulder that they're able to walk on.
I was going to say, Chief, that was one of the concerns that I've had expressed to me from the residents in and around Woodruff, is the lack of sidewalks and the speeds that the cars go make it difficult for them to walk to a neighbor's house, walk the dog, any of that stuff. And I know it's also difficult because it's so tight for your department to do enforcement there.
Right. But just to add to that, so we had a great meeting. There was, Mike, you were present, and I think 5 residents that came out, 5 or 6 residents came out, a lot of great discussion, and really spitballing ideas of what could be done in that area. with the speeds. But I think coming out of that, one thing is I think we can see the speed feedback trailer that was deployed. I think that works in that area. I would look to install one of our permanent solar power. It will work in that area. We get good solar glare that comes down that would charge that and keep that running. And then also capture more data as far as from the covert devices. We had some other ideas that we could look into, and we may be prepared to come back to the council in either the next meeting or the following meeting with some of those suggestions.
Can I ask a question about the Traffic Commission? How do you see that working?
I think a board or a committee that's formed that we hear the residents' concerns, look at what are the options that can be. Right now, I think I enjoy speaking with the residents and meeting with them. As I said, we had a great meeting on Thursday, but I think there's more to it than just enforcement. It's more to it than just collecting the data. We're looking at older roads with a lot of new people coming into the community, and so whether we have to bring in engineering and other areas to try to improve our roadways.
All right, go ahead.
One last thing, I do want to echo Deb's comments about next year's CIP proposals included.
Yes.
Even at $7,000 a unit, it seems to me that it's worthwhile.
I was going to also add covert speeding devices if you need more of those.
Yes.
And if there's any, I don't know if you can use any public safety grant money that you get to sort of do that, but is there grant money?
Yeah, we haven't had, the federal money for the highway safety has been limited on equipment. In fact, we're directed not to spend it all. We couldn't spend any of it down this federal fiscal year. Hopeful that returns next year, and it's just because of cuts that are coming down federally.
So I did just quickly look on Waze, and you can, as a municipality, we could tell them when we're doing road construction, we can announce temporary or permanent road closures. We could do no through traffic. We could do just residents or employees.
Okay, I can look into that. I wasn't aware of that.
So there are some things that we can do if we want to consider, strategically employing that. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
That's it. All right, thank you, Jim. All right, next it's going to move us to public comments. We're going to do a 30-minute segment of public comment. Then we're going to move to new business, get through that rather quickly, then come back to public comment for anyone who hasn't spoken. At this point, anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, I invite you to come on up. We just ask that you introduce yourself. We're going to limit you to 5 minutes. When you begin speaking, this clock will begin counting down. You can use it as a way to sort of guide yourself to stay within the 5. With that said, first come, first serve. Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jim O'Neill, Wakefield. 2 weeks ago, I guess I haven't recovered from that particular council meeting, but I was absolutely astounded to learn that we had to spend 5 different times, stated by Kate, 5 different times that we had to spend $150 million. That is what we were charged with, $150 million. When you look at the bond issue, the $150 million, like budgets, is a cap, and you hope to save some money from that. There should be opportunities to save some money there. But 5 different times, and I'll repeat it, a $150 million building with its academic programs. 5 different times, and it's at the 3-hour, 9-minute mark that you can tune into it. And as we learned tonight, cast in stone, I thought Mrs. Alley was my favorite council person for a few months there when she got Mr. Spiegel to state it's a 143,900 square feet building. And it was even looked at by the principals at 140,000, but that was a little too tight, 143.9 cast in stone. And we've heard that expression before. So now we learned tonight, adding that we have to spend $150 million. So here's another $6 million for the 10,000 square feet. Like it or not, they're maximizing everything out. That's money that could be, hey, I'd rather see a $145 million bond issue Think about that. I just don't understand why, after all these years, they don't understand that that's a cap. You want to hold to that or under that. And if it's under that, you can really do something positive for the taxpayers. Secondly, I want to bring up Mr. Phil Conti's comments. And thank you, Mr. President, because you stopped him when you did, but he had gone too far. It was appalling what he did, just dressing down and just brutalizing Doral Beasley, a citizen who put in hundreds of hours. And right or wrong, he's a citizen, and he was trying to save money for the taxpayers. He was trying to do something exciting for the high school, and you had Mr. Conti just rip him apart. I don't think people like that belong working for us, and I think you really should have been more brutal with him besides cutting him off early, but thank you for doing that. But we can't have people like that treat a member of the public like that when they put in so much time. Couple of reminders for you, going back to this bond issue. Back in April, Councilwoman Bergner brought up $750,000. I bring up dollars and cents all the time. And I know you want to do this affordable housing thing, and I know Jamie Rabbit's worked very hard, planning committee, you guys. But you have to remember, right now in front of us, we have a $150 million bond issue. And we've got to find some way to soften the blow to the taxpayers. And Mrs. Bergner brought it up in April. I bring it up every month. We got to start working on something there, either the Age 65 Act for seniors, something like that. That's the easy way, rather than waiting for the, what do they call, the rental registry, which will be constantly changed year after year, after you even find the 30% of people who probably don't even claim it. At least that's what the state's telling us. And then lastly, hopefully 3 months and a week from today, I brought this up at the last meeting, but Democrats, and I'm standing up, but this mayor's race in New York City is going to last through the 26 elections coming up. This man is dangerous. I think you've got to use common sense as Democrats. A few more have come out and just damned him that this man cannot win this race. We cannot have him there. He's absolutely as anti-Israel, anti-Semitic as anyone could be. And I brought up at the last meeting how the NEA is actually, with the Anti-Defamation League, they no longer are working with them. This has gone too far. You've got to make a statement over the next 3 months and 1 week that this man does not deserve to win that race in New York. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll leave.
There it is. I'm Jen Nurbon. I have a simple question. If you found a wallet on the ground with money in it, what would you do? Would you keep it? Or would you return it? Because that's exactly what you did with the taxpayers' money. You kept it, you found money in the budget that you didn't need, money that could have gone back to the people, and you chose to keep it. It doesn't matter if it was $100 or if it was $1,000. The principle is the same. It wasn't yours to keep. The 4 of you, every single one acted like you found a wallet and decided it was yours to spend. Your budget was already tight. You claimed you needed every penny, and then you found that extra money. And instead of doing the right thing and returning it to the taxpayers, you kept it. And that, to me, says everything about your values. And here's what's even stranger to me. Charlestown is a coastal town, just like South Kingstown, with the beautiful beaches. Yet, their land is cheaper and their taxes are lower. Why? Because they're elected leaders who give back to the community, not the ones who hoard the money and claim it's for the future while the people are struggling. You had the chance to show compassion, to show leadership, and to act in the interest of struggling families, and instead you chose yourselves. I'm not letting this go. I will be at every meeting until the election next year. And I'm going to make sure that every resident knows that when you were given the opportunity to return what wasn't yours, you didn't. You made a conscious choice to ignore us. You don't respond to real concerns brought up by taxpayers unless it's someone you favor. Over and over again, you ignore the rest of us. And then, Patty, a lot of times, all of us sit down, and then you stand up, and you twist facts in a way that we can't refute because you, Rory, yell at us, taxpayers, that come here to speak, which is why many people don't come here to speak, because they're intimidated. It's manipulative, and it's calculated, and it's dishonest. You say your piece once we've been silenced, and that seems to be your strategy. You change the narrative when no one can respond. And again, I ask, if you found that wallet, money you didn't need, would you return it? Because you didn't. And that speaks directly to your lack of ethics, the lack of accountability, and basic decency for everyone in this town. And after I sit down, Patty, please don't spin the truth about we gave back 4 cents to the 1,000. We gave it to you. You didn't give it to us. 8 cents, you took 8 cents from us. And then you took the 4 cents per 1,000. So you weren't giving us back 4 cents. It wasn't yours to give. You just took the full 8 cents per 1,000. That's not leadership, that's deception. The 4 of you are not here to serve, you're here for the spotlight, for your next opportunity. You don't care about reckless decisions you're making on our behalf, and your silence when challenged, that speaks louder than words. And I'm here to remind you and the entire community of what you've done, and I will keep showing up until every voter knows exactly who you are and what you all stand for. This is not about politics. This is about principle. You didn't return the wallet, and that tells me and all of us everything we need to know.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm here tonight to speak about the Wakefield Elementary School property. I know it's not on the agenda tonight, but a lot of us here know that it has been transferred from the school department to the town, and we're trying to get ahead of it before any major changes happen. So now that the land is in your hands, it's up to you to do what's best for the community and the future of Wakefield. We're asking you to take a step back and assess the long-term needs of this growing town before selling it off to developers under the uncertain promise of affordable housing. Spend just one afternoon here. Walk through the neighborhood, come to a river fire at night, see how packed this park gets, how the parking lot overflows with cars, and how vital this whole area is. This is where our kids play, where neighbors connect, and where the spirit of Wakefield lives. We're not against growth, but this isn't the place for it. Instead of squeezing a development into the most central part of town, let's build on what we have, repurpose the school as a community center, upgrade the playground, which is dedicated to Nancy Brown, a teacher who had passed away, use the plumbing that already exists, and add a splash pad. South Kingstown already has hundreds of new housing units approved, with more on the way. This town is growing, and it's likely will need space for another elementary school down the line, so think about where that land will need to be. This is a major decision with permanent consequences for the real families who live and work here. So please consider the long-term impact and what this land truly means to the future of Wakefield before giving it away forever. Once this land is gone, we can never get it back. Thank you.
Ma'am, could I please
Thank
ask
you.
you to state your name for the record?
Yes.
Over here. Yes.
Marissa Salisbury.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Tommy Barone, resident. I do want to do an info only like she did as well, but after the chief police spoke, I did want to add something. You did mention it that Waze does allow that. There's anecdotes out there, so I would definitely invite you guys to take a look at that in a deeper dive that towns have across the country told Waze, which now integrates with Google Maps, I believe, to just stay away. A lot of redirecting traffic is going through little neighborhoods with 20-mile speed zones, and it's just not working out. So they were able to block that off. I don't know if it's on a schedule, but I believe it's pretty customizable at this point. So also to that point, it sounds like Woodruff and Liberty is a carbon copy of the Middlebridge Torrey Road situation. I mean, when I live on Torrey Road, and he lives on Middlebridge, listening to that whole thing is exactly what we're dealing with over there, but never brought it to this level. I mean, maybe it has. Honestly, I haven't paid really much attention, but would love some investigation to that whole area as well to try to get the speed and traffic control in that area, because we can't walk with kids. We get in our truck and drive 3 streets over to go to the park because it's just too dangerous. So anyway, to the park down the street, I know you guys have you heard a lot through the town about that, but just all we want to say, as far as I want to say, is just reasons to pause on that. We all know there's value to the park. We can go on and on about why that's, who thinks what's better, but what we really need to do is just take a time out. We know it's in your hands now, but before there's any rash decisions, just think of things that we need to think about. And some of those things I just listed here, is there a new census that we can come up with? Do we have recent census data? The chief spoke about it. I believe you spoke about it. There's more residents. Ask the building inspector. There's just there's new buildings, more families moving in here. The data's there. It'd be nice to know how many new families and what our future's looking like on the economic side and on the educational side. Do we know what those numbers are? We're getting rid of an elementary school. Are we going to be able to procure a park or an area in Wakefield down here? We're, Feet First Plaza. I mean, what's going to be left in 5-10 years? Old deed verbiage. Was this, it was given to the town for schools. I know that that's now, time has passed, but those people on those old deeds, they founded this whole town. I mean, Nichols and the Helms, that's like historical stuff. We're talking Ben Franklin used to stay down the street at hotels before, so just consider that too. A follow-up with Parks and Rec. I believe that they already told you they would absorb that park, and they're willing to take that over, the park, the school, the whole area. So please follow up with Parks and Rec. I'd like to see that on an agenda item and for the public to see as well. The parking would be an issue. One thing we'd be afraid of is that the guests and residents of whatever's built there would just park their cars in the guest or in the resident area so that we wouldn't have a place to park. People do that in Narragansett. They take their cars out of the driveway and put it in the street so no one can park there. So these are the things we really need to think about. Everything looks good on paper, but there's a lot of things that have been going on in the background that we really have to kind of talk about and think about before you guys just make an arbitrary decision for the residents of this town. There's a lot to look at, but I think the town should maybe even be brought into that discussion, the residents themselves. So just take a pause. That's all I have to say about that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brittany Apuzzo. I am here tonight to ask for your further consideration of the Wakefield Elementary School property to remain in town control and serve a further purpose as a park. The land has been in the town's hands for well over 100 years. This property has historical significance as it was originally part of the renowned Olmsted firm Complete Park Design in the 1930s. The now restored Saugatucket Park portion passively led into active play areas previously located on the current Wakefield Elementary School site. The historically complete Olmsted vision and purpose is not lost, but if our land is sold and developed into apartments, it will be. The Wakefield Elementary School property, as it is today, delivers on community needs every day, despite the current conditions. From the playground to the community garden to the parking that grants access to Saugatucket Park amenities, the bike path, Main Street, and community events. Grants or other options could be available to help restore and preserve this historic community site. This is a vital, multifunctional community space worth fighting for. There is already a desire for many to be part of our neighborhoods here in South Kingstown. If industry and community attractiveness can be achieved, then we may need the land flexibility to support another centrally located school again. Hundreds of residence options are already set to come online within the next few years. Let us not be short-sighted on the potential and significance of this property. Passing this land over to apartments and developers forever locks out the community that uses this space through every season. I don't know of another place in our town that sees the amount of attention that the Wakefield Elementary School property does. This land enhances year-round quality of life and promotes foot traffic accessibility through town. Resident ideas to expand have included pickleball and basketball courts, splash pad, sprucing up the playground, an expanded garden, preservation of our sledding hill, covered picnic areas, parking optimization, continued enjoyment of community events. This land could really thrive and continue to provide for our community. The process could start out simply and grow over the years depending on community wishes. Please allow for consideration of these ideas for the exploration of the assistance available to restore this historic and significant public land. We could have an interactive landscape that not only Olmsted would be proud of, but most importantly, the people of our own community. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you? Oh, a little louder. My name is Morgan Parker. I live right on Northup, and I just wanted to reiterate a couple of the points about the elementary school. Really kind of four. My first point was that I forgot. The first point was there was some proposals shown in this room about potential development options for the town after it got passed from the education department to the town. Some of those were pretty dense, and I think those seem to be favored by developers because it would make sense for workforce housing and to make the project economically viable. The density of the proposal would represent a fundamental change to the neighborhood. I have a 2.5-year-old. I live right kind of facing School Street. I don't know if anyone's tried to turn onto Main Street Sunday morning after Mass gets out off of High Street, but traffic backs up pretty good. And a very dense development in the elementary school location would only double or triple the volume of cars. So I think that's something that the town council should continue to evaluate and consider. Number two is the parking. Everyone's kind of made that point, but Wakefield's a wonderful place because of the vibrant Main Street, all the events that we have, Oktoberfest, River Fire, Ladies Night, there's a Reggae Fest, concerts down there. And it's nice because you can just show up and parking's not a hassle. You can park right there. You can walk across a bridge, go get breakfast. That's a beautiful thing. There's going to be less parking in town now that there's a hotel going in, 20-unit hotel, so parking behind there will have to accommodate the hotel as well. And, you know, all those events on Main Street, it's easy. You can park, it's not Narragansett, you're not getting hassled to park. So that has a real value for the property as it stands currently. There's obviously budgetary constraints on the part of the town, like how do we pay for something that is not really getting used? I think there's probably some low-cost options that could generate some revenue, certainly enough to cover the budgetary footprint of the location. And the last thing would be it allows the town flexibility instead of committing to another workforce housing project, which I think is a good goal, but there's already a couple of those in the works. Maybe let's wait and see how those go. Kind of keep this one in our back pocket and see if we can come up with some creative short-term solutions that help drive business downtown on Main Street and also don't fundamentally alter the characteristic of the neighborhood. So those are just a couple points I'd like you to continue to consider as you evaluate the property moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, could I ask you to repeat your name? I think I missed it.
Morgan Parker.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Bailey. Miss Deborah, you started asking questions with regards to the South Kingstown High School replacement, which is wonderful. I appreciate, I'm new to this project, and I learned that there was a 10,000 square foot growth. You also brought up concerns for change notices, which we all know is a backdoor for asking for more money. What I didn't hear, and I'm a little surprised, is when you build a building, especially a school, there's a set of requirements that it has to meet. And what was the first number? Was it 1,000? No. How large was that? Was it 1,043 square foot or 10,000? What was the square footage of the first plan?
So it wasn't a plan. Do you mind if I answer? Does anyone mind?
Go ahead.
Okay. What I heard was, for budgetary purposes, that was the square footage that they used, and then they further explained that through some visioning and conversations with stakeholders, and we even know, like, the second floor, the balcony of the auditorium was added and some CTE space was expanded.
Okay. So my question...
It's about 155.
I'm sorry, I don't remember the square footage. I do know the growth was 10,000 square feet. So what I'm curious about was this building, the first number that they came up with, was it meeting the requirements that a high school should meet? Was this 10,000 square foot growth due to meeting a requirement that wasn't seen?
Sir, this is not a Q&A session.
So I'll just.
We'll.
Okay.
Can I just try
I'm sorry.
one
So
more?
I'm not.
So I asked the question. My notes were from that presentation
Correct.
that they gave,
Correct.
and they were using that as a budgetary calculation. They hadn't moved far enough through the design phase to look at the square footage for the CTE classrooms, career and technical education classrooms. So it was just in terms of demonstrating to the town council at the time that the original cost of the project, which we were told and we approved 125 million, we couldn't meet that number. And so that's that number. Those are just my notes number.
Okay. So I'm sorry then.
That's okay.
Rather than ask questions, is it all right to ask if the town council inquires about the design of the school? Does it include everything it needs to include? So if it doesn't,
So last meeting, they actually, if you want to go back, I'm just going to keep going because otherwise we're going to add it to the agenda. The last meeting that we had, the
Sure, the simple
architects
answer
came
is yes.
and presented. I was just going to say, go back and look at the last meeting we had video, because it shows you the renderings and they explain all the space. There's been a couple of meetings, but that one 2 weeks ago did show the design of the high school. So it does have everything that we need.
the first floor plan, if it meets the requirements, then I believe it's a worthy question if the extra 10,000 square feet was simply thrown in because they can afford it now, or if it was intended to meet a requirement that was not overlooked to begin with. That's the question.
And that's a question we can have answered at the next meeting. We will inform our consultants that you have such question, and we will provide clarity to that at the next meeting.
Correct.
Or you can go to the school building committee meetings and ask the question.
I know, and you're right, and I would have. I'm more aware of it now, though. So
This is, just to kind of wrap this up, this has been a 4-year process. We started with phase 1 over again in 2021. We submitted a phase 1 application in 2022. It's been reviewed a number of times. We've had a school building committee since July of 22, and the voters approved the plan in May of 24. We're now into phase 3, where we're waiting for the Department of Education to approve the design plan. Sorry.
No, that's fair. I appreciate that. All I heard was it was based on money and not meeting a requirement.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take one more speaker before we continue on our new business. Then if you hadn't had a chance to speak yet, we're going to come back to public comments after we get through new business. Welcome.
My name is Kelsey Turgeon. I'm here to strongly oppose the Wakefield Elementary School being sold to developers for condensed housing. My husband and I, our dog Suki, we love to go to the park, walk near the school, go to the bike path. Whether it's a weekday evening or a weekend morning, there's always tons of people there. We love stopping by the community garden near the school. We often pass by families, joggers, other dog walkers, along the bike path. It's just always full of life in that area. It's just more than just a park. It's a shared space that reflects the character and charm that makes South Kingstown so special. Developing this land would take away more than just green space. It would erase a piece of the town's identity and everyday moments that connect us as a community. A big part of what makes events like the Renaissance Fair and River Fire so special is the setting and the real sense of a small town charm. When people talk about keeping South Kingstown, they're talking about preserving exactly that, the feeling of a tight-knit community. And a large condensed housing development looming in the background would change the atmosphere completely. It's hard to imagine these events having the same magic with traffic congestion, overcrowding, and rows of new buildings. Once that character is gone, we can't get it back. So please protect this property as a lasting resource for the community and for generations to come.
Thank you. All right, we're now going to move to new business. Rich Bourbonnais, come on up.
Good evening. Must have been something I said.
All right, Rich, we got 4 items for you.
I'm sure it
we'll
wasn't
take them one
something
by
you
one
said.
here.
Item 10A, water purchase recommendation, water division utility vehicles, vehicles with an S. Presently, the water department has 2 pickup trucks. One of them is in immediate need of replacement. It's rotted out pretty severely. We've actually spent long periods of time without it because it's been breaking down, and so we know that we need to replace that one. The other truck is actually in pretty decent condition, but it's not a utility body, doesn't have the toolboxes and everything, so all of the sensitive equipment that our water department uses, metal detectors, things like that, are actually stored, behind the front seat, in the back seat, kind of the stuff. So what we'd like to do is replace both of these vehicles, and we have a quote to do so at $158,759. That would be 2 utility vehicles. One would be equipped for a plow. And what we would do with the better of the 2 pickup trucks is we're going to repurpose that as a DPS inspection vehicle. You may remember I was in here for an Equinox not too long ago, maybe 2 meetings ago, and you awarded a new Equinox. We really are in need of 2 vehicles, and both of them will be scrapped. Neither is going to pass inspection, but the truck will be able to use, and that helps. I think repurpose the truck, puts it to good use, and I think it puts that particular truck where it needs to be as an inspection vehicle, we can't even tow with it. They have a mini excavator. We can't even move it. We have to have highway move it for us. So anyways, this is an award to Liberty Chevrolet in the amount of $158,759,000. $130,000 was estimated in the CIP for 25-26. The remainder would come from the water division's unassigned net assets.
All right, any questions for Rich on this? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item 10A.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Rich, if you feel any of these, B, C, and D can be taken up in a block.
I can do that.
All right.
The wastewater division has been asked by the Department of Environmental Management to update our facilities plan. The facilities plan is somewhat like a comprehensive plan for the wastewater treatment facility. It includes all our conveyance systems, all of that. But it looks to the future of how much wastewater we can expect, if our facility can accommodate that, where we maybe need to make improvements. It's a pretty comprehensive plan. DEM was sparked recently by URI they're constructing a new sewer line, and DEM was a little concerned that we need to get everybody all the partners, the 3 partners. Narragansett is doing their facilities plan as well. URI is doing a facilities plan, and they wanted us to go ahead and update ours now. Now, unfortunately, we had not planned for this to be prepared until 2027, where we were looking at about $70,000. Jim Jeremiah, he's been pre-qualified by us. He's also very intimate with our wastewater facility. I asked him to provide me a quote. He quoted us $105,600 to do the facilities plan with a $5,000 contingency. That puts $110,000, and that's the award I'm asking for. That would also include a resiliency plan that was required as part of our RIPTES permit. We attempted to do it ourselves, but it requires us to look at sea level rise and multiple scenario type things. It was not something we're even qualified to do. So what we've asked Jim is to include that. It'll go into the facilities plan, but it'll be a standalone document, and it'll help resolve another requirement of DEM. There's that. Item 10C, RIDOT is responsible, and Rory, you'll like this. RIDOT's responsible for inspecting all of our bridges. We were found that to have a problem with the Silver Lake Bridge. This was a little while ago. We allocated in the CIP, I believe it was upwards of 70 grand for some of this work. I looked to Garofalo and Associates to do the engineering for this, because we already have them under contract for Broad Rock Road. They are qualified with us. They've requested $59,000. I'd like to change their contract to $69,675 for the Broad Rock Road work to $134,575 for this work. And the reason why I think you'll like it is because the problem is that it's under the water, and it's related to the riprap that is causing us a little. It's not in place properly. It needs to be surveyed. We need plans and specs, and we need to get it out to a contractor to build it.
I was waiting for it. There it was.
You bring us so much joy, Rick.
All right, Rich, one more here. Item D.
The Matunic Tower, the Mawtucket Tower. As you know, we are replacing the pods on those towers. The cell carriers are handling most of the work. It came up somewhere around maybe, it was towards the end of the season, or towards the beginning of the spring season, so it might have been April or May. The contractor that's doing the work for the cell carriers had contacted me and said, listen, we have to move the radio towers that are related to our EMS. It's the 400 system that our communication department has just moved forward and we just implemented, but that needs to come off the pod as well, because they're cutting the pod off the tower. They quoted it. I said, well, listen, I got to go to council. It was $10,000, and they went ahead and moved it. But what we had to do is we had to have Marcus come in and reorient all of that equipment, and what they're asking for is $10,475. The work's already been done, but Marcus is our regular contractor on that system. Marcus is who we would have called anyways. We are comfortable with the dollar amount, and it is what I would have come in here anyways. I just didn't get the opportunity to before they actually moved it.
All right. Thank you, Rich. Any questions?
Rich, with regard to item B, as I understand your explanation, it's basically a report about your capacity.
It includes capacity, but it's more than that. It's looking at projections. So it really kind of looks at it's a 20-year projection is what it is. But it'll also look at our capacity in our conveyance systems, capacity of the wastewater plant, but also where that capacity, I guess it is, yes, I guess it's all pretty much capacity. But it's an inventory too, so it's like a comp plan, but it's an
Inventory of?
of all of our existing systems.
Okay.
So it puts it all into one sort of package.
Did you know that this additional wastewater from URI was going to be coming through the system?
Well, so the reason, URI is putting no, not necessarily. URI is installing and it's almost done now, it's a sewer main extension, and it goes from in that Chafee area all the way down the hill to the bottom of it. It's not down the hill, it's actually up the hill. I always thought it was down the hill, but it's actually kind of goes uphill. And it pitches in the proper direction, it's all gravity. But what they did was they put in a PFAS plant.
Okay.
Okay?
Now
And
you
it's
got my
operational.
attention.
It's operational, and it was operational in October. Now, it's not connected to any sewer at this point. But what they are looking to do is to install a iron and manganese removal system, and that would be backwashed into our system.
Okay.
Into the wastewater. Now, it sounds scary in a sense, and we've been very concerned. So we will be doing some testing to determine what the levels are of the iron and manganese coming into our system. But from my discussions with DEM, those are not regulated elements, and because we have an ocean discharge, and it's not going to affect our system. It's also heavily diluted with the other materials they have. Although dilution is not an option, you can't dilute, the adverse chemicals. It's actually in their industrial waste permit, URI's industrial waste permit. They have right now an insignificant permit with us. We're not doing any sampling. We do a single source sample down at Peckham Farm. But what I'm going to look to do is to sample right at this facility just to see what the numbers are. And then when we sample at Peckham, we'll get an idea of what kind of flow is going to our system. And if it at this point right now, it's not regulated, and I'm not concerned. If it ever becomes regulated in the future, we know where it's happening, and we'll have an opportunity to address it at that point. URI is fully aware of that. We've had meetings on this, and everybody's on board.
And
I'm comfortable.
And DEM has no concerns about adding the iron manganese to our system? Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
You go
have to
first. No, you can go first. Thanks.
So Rich, each of these purchases, you don't have enough money and you're going to the net assets, what is it called again? Wastewater and unrestricted, basically.
The unassigned net assets?
Unassigned net assets. So as luck would have it, I was cleaning and organizing my home office, and I just have a question. This is from Zach's presentation of a summary of non-budgeted enterprise funds. So are you using the wastewater fund? Would that be what that is?
It would be the wastewater unassigned net assets for the wastewater facilities plan.
Okay.
And for the water items, it would be the water department's
fund?
unassigned net assets, yes.
Okay. So the wastewater fund has 13,700,000 and change in it.
Yes.
And the water fund has 4.9 million and change.
It did at that time.
It did at that time, as of June 30th, 2024. It's just a lot of money. You're dipping into something that already has a huge fund balance. I just wanted to point that out to the community.
Yeah. And it's good to point that out, but I would also, in the same breath, point out that we just had a force main project that was almost $5 million.
Okay.
So, when we look at the funds that we have available, we have to also look at the infrastructure that those funds support. And like a new water tank would be,
$15 million.
$1 million. Yeah,
Right.
$1 million. Or a PFAS plant is 15 to 20.
Yep.
URI did this plant, smaller than what we would do. I think it's an 800,000 gallon a day plant, but it was $20 million. So, we're always, we are talking about significant dollars for significant infrastructure support.
I totally understand.
It's got to be all in the same breath, is all I'm saying.
I understand. I just happen to keep this and bring this with me because it's in my pile of things, but It just it demonstrates there's a lot of money in the reserve funds for lots of
There
projects.
is, but I'd also like to point out that these things are already things we've looked at in the CIP in the future. The facilities plan is something I was projecting in '27. I'm only being
Right.
asked to do it now.
I know, I've read
So
that.
regardless of whether we have all that money or not, we still have to plan appropriately. So that's what we're trying to do, so.
Right.
Okay.
I read your memo, and I asked you to speed it up because you only had 60 budgeted because you were working and so you're advancing it. I understand.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Rich, item D. The contractor has not requested any payment for moving the equipment, and the only expense is having Marcus climb the tower and reposition the transmitters, and invoice for this service is $10,000. So it's $10,000 for Marcus to climb the tower.
Yeah, it was more than that, though. It was multiple towers. So it was a lot of work, and it may have been some upgrades on some brackets and things like that. They may have made some changes, but again, I've looked through this and I was comfortable with it. I wish I had it with me. I could explain what exactly the invoice was, but it was mostly for for the person hours, I guess, but to move all the equipment around.
And forgive me, is it often that we're authorizing a payment as opposed to asking for the payment in advance?
No.
Why did this happen this time?
Because the contractor, and I kind of laughed because no, this is absolutely not the way we wanted to do it. And I brought it to the town manager, and we said no, it's got to go to the council. And it was disappointing to say the least that this happened. But it was a contractor running like gangbusters for a private company, a cell company, which just preempted me even getting here. It was going to happen. I was going to come here anyways. But it's coming after the fact is all.
I know you mentioned that we've used Marcus before. Are they a preferred vendor?
Well, Marcus is the organization, the company that oversaw our entire implementation of all of our. In fact, they're still working with us. They still fit out our vehicles with radios, all those things. All the 400 system was all implemented. Well,
that makes sense. It just seems that Marcus kind of didn't do the right thing for our protocols.
Oh no! I'm sorry. The company's name that moved the equipment was Hydrea. Okay, they were the contractor working for the cell carriers. Okay, Marcus went up and repositioned. Right, they took their equipment and made it right after this other company moved their equipment.
Right. So what did they do for $10,000?
Well, they moved all the equipment. They also rebracketed a number of things. There was a little bit of work involved.
All right, and they know not to do that in the future, to come to us first so we can ask for the work done and then we can authorize payments?
Yes.
Cool. No further questions. Motion to approve item 10B, item 10C, and item 10D.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? I got one question. What is it that led to sort of the oversight issue whereby approval of money was authorized before it was approved by the council? Keep it brief if you could.
There was no, it just happened.
Emergency situation.
Yeah, I would say it was emergency condition.
All right,
yeah.
that clarifies.
Yeah, and also I'll add that when the equipment got moved, it wasn't positioned properly, and it reduced the system, the quality of the system. So the 400 system wasn't operating where it really needed to be. So Marcus had to get up there and take care of it, and it had to happen quick.
All right.
So the Hydrea had them. When we contacted Hydrea and said, "What are you doing?" Marcus just went up and did it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Will we do this again? Like, when will this need to be?
So this is
redone?
going to happen again. It's going to happen at Victoria. I'm still pushing the cell carriers. They say they have FAA issues. But Victoria does not have the radio equipment that we're talking about on it, so this issue won't happen again. But we are looking to get the pod taken down off of Victoria, hopefully this fall.
Is that Hydrea? Is that a job that
No.
No?
Unfortunately, I wish it was, because they actually did move quickly and they were pretty easy to deal with, other than this issue. But they communicated decent.
So is that a Victoria water tower a different bid and everything?
So the way it works, cell carriers are complicated. They're very big organizations, and each one of them in themselves. So what happened with Mortucket was, I believe, maybe it was Verizon took the lead Whereas Victoria, even though Verizon is a part of this, AT&T has the lead. So, you know, Hydrea is in the mix of a potential contractor for AT&T, and they do AT&T work. But whether AT&T brings them on or not, I can't say, and Hydrea can't even say at this point.
So we don't directly pay Hydrea?
No, cell carriers take care of all of this.
Okay.
All we do is we oversee the, you know, the building permit, all those things. We make sure all the structural works. And I did require they went to our structural engineer, Dixon Engineering out of Michigan. In fact, they came out a month ago and inspected the work that Hydrea had done. They're going to make a few little tweaks, but generally it's pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Rich. Whoa,
Can I-
nope. What do you got?
You know, I've been the director of public service for 3 years. In fact, next week will be finishing my 3rd year. Through those 3 years, Liz Ennis has been a very big part of my, I'm not going to say success, but for my ability to not lose my job. Okay, so she is retiring on August 1st, so this Friday. And Liz is sort of a quiet, sort of not in the office certainly, but a quiet asset that I would imagine everything that anybody's done in this town has gone through her hands at one point, right? Because she deals with all of our utilities, a lot of stuff. She's very, very active, but she's very passionate about the town. And I think that, it's funny because, I don't want any particular staff to be indebted to any particular person that works in the town. I'd rather have them be indebted to the residents because that's our job, and she is certainly all of that. And I am going to miss her very dearly. We've had a lot of laughs. I mean, I can't tell you how much fun it has been working with her. And I just want to point out that unfortunately we are losing a great asset. We've had some great interviews. I feel confident we'll find somebody. But if anybody has interacted with her, you'll know she's fantastic. She literally looks at the water bills, the water flows on Monday to make sure nobody had any leaks. This is what she does. And then makes an effort to contact. And that's the type of person she is. And she's going to be greatly missed. And I just wanted to point out how unlucky we are. I'm very happy for her because she's going to spend more time with her grandkids. She's got a little more summer left. And I think pickleball's the problem, frankly. And I blame Terry. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out, that if anybody out there has been helped by her, give her a call and tell her thank you. All right?
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Rich.
She will be so missed by the wellness committee too. I know she spearheaded the salsa growing and contest. It's her little claim to fame a few years ago. What? Ground Up Fiesta. So thank you, Liz. You are going to be missed.
All right, Jamie Gorman, come on up.
Good evening, councilors. With respect to item 10E, the building department is seeking your authorization to purchase a 2026 Chevy Equinox for the price of $29,876 from McGovern Municipal Headquarters out of Massachusetts. This vehicle will be a replacement for the 2018 Chevy Equinox, which is over the past few years really plagued our department with electrical issues. That vehicle has been auctioned for an amount of $5,610 because we're unable to use it for the last 3 months. The money for the Equinox will come from the Capital Reserve Fund and was fully funded in the fiscal year 26 CIP. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Jamie? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. We got item F here.
Item F, so currently the town's schedule of fees provides a waiver for all building permits associated with construction on town property as well as school property if the estimated cost is $200,000 or less. As you know, town school construction projects on town property that cost in excess of that $200,000 require town council approval for the waiver of the permit fees. Recently, I believe it was in March or April, there was a Perryville EMS request before you, which was granted, so that permit fee would have been around $14,000. So it doesn't appear to be a benefit for the town to charge itself for permit fees. Historically, they've always been granted when the cost was in excess of $200,000. Neighboring communities such as Charleston and Richmond provide a blanket waiver on all projects. There were a few other communities, but those were the nearest. So just looking to see, because we do have the Peacedale Community Learning Center, we'd be, rather than submitting that request for a waiver this meeting, rather look at the whole schedule of fees to see if that's the better solution.
Good.
So I have a question for the solicitor, because you've probably been here the longest. Do you have any idea why they created the language that we are potentially going to just amend?
I honestly do not, but it is very unusual for a town to charge itself for building permit fees. I
You don't
can't
recall any
fully
rationale, like on Steve Alford days?
My guess is that it preceded my tenure here, even though I've been here for a while.
Huh. I mean, it doesn't, it's illogical, but I just was wondering if there was ever logic 30 years ago or 25 years ago. Not in your recollection. Thank you.
I got a few questions. So, currently, as it applies now, anytime that there is a building permit fee sought for anything under the cost of $200,000, the town would have to obtain the permits and pay the fees for it. So in essence, am I correct on that?
So the contractor would obtain the permits.
Okay.
But
so
there would be,
as it relates to, like, we're paying a contractor to develop some sort of town construction type of thing. If the cost of that was under $200,000, the contractor would have to obtain the permit fees. So it's not as if the town was paying the costs that it's charging. It wouldn't be like it's paying itself for costs it's charging itself. It'd be charging the developer. So it's, can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah, I mean, I think if it's under 200,000, it's automatically waived. So the council made that, that's in the schedule of fees. But if, for projects for developers or other contractors to bid on them, it would, by including that in the bid specs, it kind of artificially inflate the project cost. So, on a bigger project, a multi-million-dollar project, that could be, $20,000, $30,000, or, the high school project, $100,000.
So in essence, we would be reimbursing the developer the cost the developer is paying to the town related to the permit fee for the construction the developer is doing for the town.
Yeah, you'd be shifting the money around essentially back and forth.
Okay, so this just cuts that out. Does this also add like a streamlining effect? I know when you need a building permit, that may take time. Whereas like if there's a project for the town, now regardless of the amount involved, you don't have to, well, I guess you still need the permit, just don't have to pay the fees associated with it?
Yeah, I think the administrative burden would be making sure we get before the council to get the waiver before, we wouldn't be able to issue the permit without your authorization.
But now you can issue the permit without council authorization because the fee associated with it is already waived.
If it's under 200,000.
Currently, but I'm talking about
Oh,
as if we passed
yes,
it tonight.
Correct. You're correct.
Am I thinking this through right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right.
I just wish I knew the background of like why it was this threshold and why it was in place, because there has to be a reason. Steve Alford doesn't just do things because.
I didn't reach out to the previous building officials to see, maybe I should have. I did notice that there was in a few other cities and towns similar language with the 200,000 being that number, and I just couldn't find any background.
What are these fees, what do they add up to potentially? Like if, as it's written currently, if you have a project that's more than 200,000, what are the potential building permit fees associated with those projects?
It's basically $9 per thousand.
Okay.
Roughly.
All right, so larger the project, larger the fee.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, does this apply to UFD as well?
UFD, it does not.
No?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps we could have a conversation with them to see if, if there's an appetite for any kind of waiver, blanket waiver, but that's, I guess, a future discussion.
Thanks.
All right, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item 10F.
Got a motion, we got a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, this passes. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Chief Moynihan, come on up.
So we requested a order of notice for...
Chief, before
Yep.
you start, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the appropriate time. Although it says Old North Road parking restrictions, it principally involves Christ the King Church, where the council will recall from a couple months ago, my wife is the pastoral associate. Out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself, and Nicole, I have not done the form yet, but I will do that.
So for the past, really the whole time I've been chief, I've received complaints about parking. So the current ordinance allows, there's no parking at all on Old North Road except, there's an exception from Saturday at 5 p.m. to Sunday at 10 a.m. Right in the area of Christ the King Church. It's in front. There's a limited shoulder in that area. We've had some incidents there, but basically the neighbors, the complaints that are coming in is that people that are attending Mass are parking in front of the driveways. Father Jared's been great at Christ the King Church. I met with him this morning. We discussed it. We've tried enforcement, but the problem with it is the cars are left there. Sometimes leave it right in front of the driveways of residents. They can't get out. They'll get a ticket, but it doesn't solve the problem. Last year, we did make a modification where we installed more signage out there and widened the area between the driveways and where there's no parking. So this notice is either we eliminate the exception and don't allow parking at all in that area. When I did meet with Father Jared this morning, one suggestion came up is that we just reduce the no parking area for the exception period. So again, there's no parking anytime on Old North Road except for that time period, but we would limit the no parking just in front of the residents so it wouldn't affect the driveways. He's looking at a parcel of land in the back that they're looking to get permission, I guess, from the Providence Diocese, and then build another parking lot, which would enable them to have another 30 cars or so behind the church. He estimates that's going to be about a year and a half of a project. So one concession to this, again, when I met with him this morning, this idea came up, would be either we look at eliminating the no parking at all on Old North Road and don't permit any cars to park there at any time, or we restrict it just to the area right in front of the church where where the field is, and you look out. Probably would accommodate maybe 20 to 25 cars in that area.
All right.
Any questions there?
Thank you, Chief. Any questions?
So you said that the time ended at 10 a.m. on Sundays?
That's correct, yes.
So that wouldn't actually include the 11 o'clock Mass, which is, I just wonder why that was...
I don't know when it was put in that, but I believe it is, it's 10 a.m. It's 5 p.m. on Saturday at 10 a.m. I don't know.
Yeah, because I
Mike,
know...
I don't know if you would know on why that was created at some point, but...
Yeah, because it seems like Sunday would, I mean, that the 11 o'clock Mass is usually packed.
There is a lot of parking in the back, but obviously...
Yeah, there is a ton of
during the summertime
parking.
there is, but then when school's in session, I think they run into a problem with students parking in that area and it limits it. again, Father Jarity, if they're able to get this additional land and build out the parking lot, they feel as though they'll have plenty of parking. This recommendation here, it's just, we've tried several different approaches and really not getting it much of a remedy to the residents in that area. And again, there's not much of a shoulder there, and so it's more of a discussion of whether we should restrict parking altogether in front of the church.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any other questions?
Motion to approve item 10G.
We got a motion. I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you, Chief. We got one more item from you.
So the next item is a request for the purchase of furniture from WB Mason. We have our Burn Jag Grant Award from 2019 to 2022 were just released, and we have a time restriction to have to spend those funds by September 30th. We've been waiting for the funds for really several years for it to be released. And what we were considering here with the furniture purchases, we've expanded our administrative bureau and also our community resource unit. So community resource unit, our traffic unit is in there. Our administrative bureau does our training and also the accreditation. So we would look to repurpose some of the space we have in the police department, and with the installation of office cubicles and workstations for individuals. It will also allow for our mental health clinicians that come in on a part-time basis that they would have a workspace as well within the police department. So we were awarded from the Grant Administration Office $47,251, and so my request would be a purchase order or approval to purchase furniture not to exceed that amount.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Jamie Rabbit, come on up. Jamie, these ones here are an advert authorizing the town clerk to advertise for order of notice for public hearing, so we can move through these rather quickly, but we'd like to hear about them briefly, so go ahead.
Again, I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think this one's relatively simple and speaks for itself. You had a proposal from legal counsel that was initiated by the town council to make amendments to the town zoning ordinance as it relates to rental registry. That language was referred to the planning board. The planning board reviewed that at their July meeting. They sent a recommendation back to you with 3 items of concern relating to language associated with the time period for the registry and annual deadlines, the evaluation for noticing an information packet within the property, and then the evaluation of the actual registry fee and how that affects potentially supplying affordable housing to the marketplace. That recommendation, in essence, went to you in a favorable manner, asking you, prior to any final action, to address those items in any manner you see appropriately. Given that and seeking guidance from legal counsel has advised us as well as you that the most appropriate venue to take up those 3 items is the public hearing process. So therefore, we're making a recommendation to you to do your order or notice, which will then allow you to have your public hearing.
Excellent. Do I hear a motion on this one?
Motion to approve item 10H. I'm sorry, motion to approve item 10I.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. Now we got item J, Jamie? My apologies.
That's fine. The next item is a request by the planning board and the council to bring back the cottage regulations. They were originally adopted in 2021. They sunsetted in 2022, sunsetted in 2023. There was a 2-year sunset in March of 2025. So again, we're trying to bring those back forward. I know there are a few members of the council who were not around as members in 2019 when Horsley Witten began their missing middle housing endeavor and report, and also during the adoption in 2021 and again in 2023. So if there's any information you feel you need, I have the actual regulation, the design guidelines in digital format if anyone has any questions or needs me to put those up on the TVs.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. Go ahead.
So at the last meeting, I wasn't able to ask, I was denied asking the question about how this lapsed. So could somebody offer an explanation of how it sunsetted and how it got overlooked?
So I don't want to say it got overlooked. In 2023, the planning board as well as the council was fairly adamant that if this wasn't utilized, it would sunset. Staff recommended to remove the sunset provision. That guidance was not, I don't want to say followed or adhered to, but the council voted to sunset the provision with no further discussion after 2-year provision. So the planning board did not bring it back up as a venue to reinitiate it. The Affordable Housing Collaborative brought it up as, why did this sunset? Why wasn't the planning board? You know, we explained the sunset provision, and then it came back up as a subject matter, and here we are tonight.
So has anyone utilized the cottage zoning or ordinance to do a cottage?
We have had a few developers who have looked at that as a model of development, but their primary concern was with the certainty of receiving a permit, even if they adhere to the regulations, and the ability of the planning board to act on an application that adheres to the regulations.
Can you say that in a way that people, right, who might not understand what that means?
They were concerned about delays in the permitting process and the planning board evaluating a new regulatory realm and the certainty of a positive outcome.
They did not want to be the first one through the gate, so they didn't.
They were
reluctant to be the guinea pig.
Concerned and reluctant of going through that permitting process.
I understand.
We have, as a department, used it as a tool with developers to look at alternative styles of development and incorporate some of the principles of the village regulations in their new development. So we have been successful there. We haven't gotten a true code compliant village, but some of the aspects we have asked developers to incorporate those into their new developments.
So are there other, everything is like a lesson learned, are there other ordinances that are going to sunset that you would not necessarily bring to our attention?
I am only aware of the sunset provision for the cottage community zoning regulations. Again, my experience as a planner is that when you adopt the regulation, you're adopting it because you believe in it. Just because someone doesn't utilize it in 12 months or 24 months doesn't mean it's not a good regulation. It just means someone didn't utilize it in that time frame.
And we did find that to be true when we did the ADUs. Not a lot of people many years ago took advantage of being able to put one in. I do believe the community is aware of it now and maybe actively putting ADUs in. But I think there were concerns about the community, the cottage zoning ordinance that we were concerned about, so that we were trying to then make adjustments. That's why I think it wasn't a sunset to go away. It was a sunset to evaluate, collect the data, and tweak. That is, I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah,
who was on that?
Yeah, from my perspective as a planner, if you have a regulation that needs to be tweaked, you don't need a sunset.
Well, we needed a reminder for it to come back up to us, I think. I think it was a way to have it come back and have the council make adjustments. That's my recollection.
Can I ask, would this be, do you guys think this would be a good model for the Watson property? Or potentially? Seems like it would be perfect to me.
I'm going to interrupt it. I'm concerned that the agenda item is limited to order of notice. These questions are great, and I think they're appropriate at the hearing, but I'm just a little concerned we're getting beyond.
Fair.
I don't want to do that.
All right. Any other questions for Jamie on this?
Not for Jamie, I was going to just make a motion.
All right, good. Let's go for it.
Motion to approve item 10J.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a suggestion for the members of the council, because this is just order of notice for public hearing, we can have the discussion about whether or not to do it. And to the extent that this goes out in the ether, I'd like to hear from the business community where they were at when this was put in, because the council clearly made a conscious decision to sunset this, and if it hasn't been particularly successful, that may not, Jamie's right, that may mean nothing about the regulation itself, but it may.
I got a quick comment too. Just a thought. As I recollect on maybe what we were thinking at the time when we passed it, it's possible that this allows for higher density housing and development such that if there was a spur, like an onset of a lot of development, this will allow us to like step back and be like, all right, it's sunsetted, maybe we don't like what the result of it was, but just a thought. We can discuss that further at the public hearing. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Mike Stack, come on up.
Good evening. This is for your consideration, the fee schedule resolution to adopt the fee schedule for the kayak and small boat storage. Currently, by ordinance, only at Lake Avenue and Washington Street in Matunic. You requested at the June 23rd meeting, Town Council meeting, to have the Waterfront Advisory Commission provide you a recommendation, which they did at their July 10th meeting. And their recommendation for this year is a resident fee of $25 and a non-resident fee of $35.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any questions? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought someone else. So this is for this year, which makes sense. I would imagine there's a lot of potential public interest in having this. So do you have a process, or is that future challenge to the Waterfront Advisory that you figure out, should there be more people interested than space, how do you allocate?
Yeah, so we did cover that with the ordinance.
It is?
Yeah, so there'll be, we'll allocate spaces, and then there'll be a wait list. If in the first year there's more demand, which I don't believe this portion's in the ordinance, but if there were more demand than we can accommodate, then I would recommend that we just had a lottery for the spaces on that first year, and then after that, you would have a wait list in place, and so every time one is given up, somebody on the wait list would move into that space.
It's definitely not in the memo, the lottery process, but I was...
In this memo, that's correct,
right.
yeah.
But when we talked about like making sure the people in the mooring had a spot, and then if they gave up a spot, you had to keep, right? But that's not outlined here.
Correct. This is specific. So we discussed all that when the ordinance was adopted, but my marching orders, I believe, if I understood correctly, were to have the Waterfront Advisory Commission close the loop on providing a recommendation for what we would charge, what the fee would be, because that wasn't determined at the public hearing for the ordinance adoption.
Okay.
If I'm incorrect, by all means.
You're fine. You're fine.
That was my understanding that I took away from that and went back to the Waterfront Commission for their recommendation.
Okay. Thank you.
Mike, thanks for the hard work that you do in the Waterfront Advisory Committee. Councilors, I would support this this item K, but I would actually like to change the resident fee to $10 and the non-resident fee to shift over to $50. That is how I feel, and that would be my recommendation. I think that if There's no reason that we can't shift the dollar amount less to our residents and give them the priority and have less of a burden. They're paying for their taxes already for it, so.
So Mike, what's the basis for the fees that the Waterfront Advisory Commission is recommending here?
So I think that they looked at what other municipalities were doing, and other municipalities were significantly higher. And to the councilman's point, they were looking to have the burden significantly less than what other communities were. And the tweak of the 25 to 35 was to provide some benefit to, you know, the residents, a nominal, you know, discounted charge versus the non-residents.
And this is for a full year?
9 months.
9 months?
Well, it would be correct, yes. It would be for a full season. They're also taking into consideration in having you folks evaluate this, that it's now July, almost to August. We have the permits in place to issue to people. We're going to have to notify the public that this is now available and what the fee is. So we're kind of coming into this late, but it will be a good, you know, kind of soft opening, if you will, like a dry run, kind of work out all the bugs, get the people who we know rely on that area to you know, provide that activity, et cetera.
How many slots are there for the vessels?
So that would be determined when we re-engage with the CTE program. If you remember, we were going to have the high school CTE program build the racks. I couldn't get a definitive answer. I asked the teacher who I spoke with that we met on site if he could just provide me a rough estimate of what he thought each area would accommodate. We were bumping up against the end of school, and I don't have that answer.
All right, so in the interim, this is just to store the small vessel
We're
on the
gonna
ground over there.
We'll clear the area. There's already boats that have shown back up down there again. So we'll you know, highway department will clear the area. We may see if we can find like some timbers or something that in this year they can lay them across. We'll have a registry, and they'll each be issued a sticker to put on their boat, which I already have, so that if this is approved, we're ready to go. And then, so that way we'll have a way to contact everybody and know whose boats are whose, et cetera.
And then there's fees associated with just enforcing the ordinance and just sort of monitoring what's going on.
There's going to be fees to build the racks. You know, there's going to be a cost associated with the racks. There certainly is going to be, you know, the time to monitor. We're going to have to issue the permits, collect the fees. A lot of that can be done online through the mooring software we have, but there's some people who don't want to utilize that, so they're going to have to come in person and have a face-to-face with town staff and you know, have their cash and check taken and the processing of all of that. So certainly there's going to be, you know, administrative fees, et cetera.
And the revenue generated from the fees sort of allow this thing to be sustainable in a sense?
I guess that depends on what the fee is going to be set at, right? There's going to be the initial site prep and the building of the racks. That's going to be a large expense. I think once they're done, it's not going to be nearly the amount. There's going to be, you know, the Parks Department or the Highway Department will do the maintenance of the site. If we have to fix things or if there's vandalism, you know, that incidental stuff, but it's going to be pretty basic. It's just timbers and galvanized bolts and nuts. So, you know.
Given the neighborhood of Lake and Washington where this is going, how is the Advisory Commission defining non-resident? Because there's a lot of summer residents there who will presumably be utilizing these.
Did we define that in the ordinance? We might have.
I believe that was defined in the ordinance. For the purposes of moorings, which the Waterfront Commission tried to mirror the mooring regulations, it's a property owner or a resident. So a non-resident that owns property in Matunica, summer residents, et cetera, would be eligible, and somebody who doesn't own property, who is a resident, you know, that has a utility bill or et cetera, would be able to be a resident as well.
Right, so a summer resident that lives down behind Seaview who wants to put a boat there for 9 months is going to be considered for the residential fee?
Yep.
If they pay property taxes, That's correct. That's my understanding. That's how we do it with the moorings.
Thank you.
Is the ordinance up in the town code yet? Just curious, because I'm looking for it.
Yeah, so it should be in the Ord Bank. Like when you go into it, just on that cover page, it shows you a list of ordinances that were adopted during this this quarterly term.
Say that again, the what bank?
So it's called Ord Bank, but it's on our town code. If you go to our homepage and click on town code, right there on that front page, it should show a list of the ordinances that were adopted that are not yet codified. So ordinance of 5/27/2025, it is right there on the list, and you can view it.
I will look for that, because I
Okay.
went a different way.
Okay.
Mike, now that we've walked through how non-residents defined under the ordinance here, it seems to me that it would be rare to find non-residents, as that is defined under the ordinance, to be storing small vessels at these locations. Is that reasonable to infer?
It certainly is reasonable. We have moorings that non-residents have. So I would agree with you. On its face, I think probably it's going to be predominantly residents. But that could change once, people are aware of it. There could be people that enjoy Potter Pond and want to be able to not have to haul their boat down every time. It's difficult to predict, but I would agree with your initial assumption that it will be mostly residents.
All right.
We did have a constituent come when we had the meeting who was he used to live in Matunic, and now he lives in Cumberland, and he was the older gentleman that was very nervous about using a board to get to his boat. I don't know if you remember that, Mike, the gentleman that was here. Yeah.
The priest.
Was he a priest?
Yeah.
Oh. The priest, I guess. Oh.
Yeah, he was the priest.
All right. I'm pretty good with the fee structure as is. I think in light of sort of understanding that it's going to be majority residents as to how that is defined under the ordinance, I think it makes sense that we sort of keep it as is. Otherwise, it's very disparate, and I think that we'll be happy to give a very low fee to just about most, if not all, of those utilizing it.
Councilors, I say this is low-hanging fruit to do the residents a favor and have, say, $15. That's really what I'm thinking here. We can vote on it now or in anything like that, but if you shifted $15 to non-residents and $10 or $15 away from the resident fee, $10 for residents, $50 for non-residents, I think that's fair. I think you're doing the residents a favor. I understand if you don't want to go for it, but that's my suggestion.
My concern, and that's why, sorry.
Oh, 2040.
I mean, $25 is not a lot if you have a boat.
It's a kayak. It's $100 kayak.
I think we have a recommendation from the Waterfront Advisory Commission, and this is supposed to be self-sustaining in terms of the costs. If the vast majority of these people are going to be residents paying the fee, we don't want to wind up putting ourselves in a jackpot by not raising enough money to cover it at $10 each. That's my only
Right.
concern. So
Right.
I'm going to move to approve K as stated.
So I kind of going to go with Nate Merrill and the Waterfront Advisory Commission. The fee structure is very minimal. I think next year or at any point, the council can amend the fee structure. It's not an ordinance, it's just a agenda item. So when this year we're looking at startup costs, we have construction, carpentry, we have to do that, and then maybe we tweak it and we play around with it and make it less the next year. But an inaugural year, I think we need to sort of get the seed money to build the racks. So,
All right, we got a motion.
second.
We got a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I hope we come back next year and make it $10 for residents and $50 for non-residents. I think that there's going to be great interest in down in Matunic for non-residents trying to get in there, and I think we're going to come back and say, that was a good idea, Jay, let's get after it.
All right, perhaps we'll have some data by then to show us how many residents, how many non-residents. We'll take a look. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Mike. All right, item L is discussion and potential action relative to scheduling a work session regarding a homestead exemption program as requested by Councilmember Patty Alley. Patty, go ahead.
So I just think it's really important that we treat the homestead exemption in the same manner that we've treated our other priorities. I do think that there's a fair amount of confusion about how we are going to get to our goal of enacting a homestead exemption, and that we need to clarify the process for everybody, including ourselves. And to me, that requires a meeting, you know, in a couple of months, but with Wendy and Brian, where we really go through the steps, because there's some confusion about where we are with it. So we wanted to get the legislation, the enabling legislation, early. But that's sort of, you know, if you're running a race, that's like the trophy at the end. But you still need to actually run the race and figure out exactly what we're going to do. And so there's been a lot of frustration expressed by residents who rightly so are looking for meaningful tax relief. We need to just look at the situation. We're not going to be able to do everything that we want to, but we need to understand what we can do so that we can use a scalpel to strategically give tax relief where it's most needed. And so I just want us to start working on this in public. And I don't know whether we need to have like an entire big meeting like we've had before, or if we can start with a simple work session or something, but I'm not exactly sure how we should do it, but I want to start working on it so that we're following a process to, you know, like, for instance, we do have several tax relief programs, like for veterans, for the blind, for elderly. We have a sliding scale. So I think we need to kind of look at all of that. But that's basically where I'm coming from.
All right, I'm in favor of having a work session September. By that time, we'll have already taken up the rental registry ordinance. Hopefully by then it's already in effect. And then shortly after it takes effect, we'll be in a position to start talking about, all right, now that that's in place, next steps as far as how do we explore potential options for homestead, as Patty just sort of enumerated there, and just get the ball rolling. Just get us talking about it, get us in a place where we can brainstorm, at least a starting point, and you know, that'll lead to more work sessions and work product that we can actually look at, analyze, and make decisions on.
I concur, Mr. President.
Sounds fine.
All right, so we're going to shoot for between the first and second meeting of September for a work session.
Do we need to make a motion for that, or?
I don't think we need a motion for that.
Okay.
So Patty rightly mentions the tax abatement program we have for the elderly. I think it would be helpful for the council to understand how that works. Very few people actually take advantage of it, and right, because they don't qualify. So I'm curious, if you own your home as a very large asset, that may preclude you. I don't understand how the calculation works, because if you think about it, many people in the town are 65 and up. And so does that, what is the parameters? Is that a way that?
It's like a sliding scale.
I
Like,
understand.
We
but-
have a lady, or we have a letter from a resident.
Right,
too.
I see the sliding scale. I helped to expand the brackets and reduce the number of brackets in the past. It's more about, why aren't more people taking advantage of it? Is it because the people who are over 65 have money? Is it a wealthy 65-year-old population? I don't think it is. I don't know what's the stumbling block, so I'm thinking that we probably need also additional information so we all understand it, so that we talk to people, we can say, this is what it is or not, because many people don't qualify. So why do they not qualify? Is it because their home precludes them?
I think, yeah, we just need to do a like deep dive into where we are so that we can understand it and then understand the financial ramifications and how we can do it.
Do you think that Wendy could come in at a future meeting and talk about the program and who applies and give us more of an overview? Because we just...
Wendy's coming in August 12th. It's already scheduled.
Perfect.
So there's been a lot of discussion on the homestead exemption and the possibility of it. I did it just so, sometimes we're repeating, but I need to state this, that we need to know the exact demographics of the town, because it's not an easy thing to do if you're trying. So there's about, I'll give you some numbers with you. There's about 13,600 parcels that are on the tax roll right now. About 9,300 are single-family homes. Of the single-family homes, this is a statistic that we strive just to see if there is a correlation without the rental registry, if we can do it that way. So it's 13,600 parcels on the tax rolls. It's 9,300 are single-family homes. Approximately 7,200 of the bills go to the address that matches the owner of the property. So what does that mean? That means if you use that alone and you take an estimation that about 77% are owner-occupied residents. So if you get 9,300 single-family homes, of which 7,200 of those bills are going back to the address where the people live, you can make an inference, it's not exact, that about 77% are owner-occupied. So if the tax levy is $77 million a year, and we run this town lean, unless you cut services or positions or whatever, that's the number, or school aid. Where if approximately 77%, 75% are owner-occupied, and those are the people, those are the residents that you're striving to give tax relief for, where does that increased tax liability go to the other 25%? So that's going to be a major discussion. Now, there is an alternative to this that we're studying, looking at, is the exemptions, like you said. We have many exemptions. Maybe expanding the exemption program and include that as a homestead, all right? But to give, if that number is accurate, and 75, 77% are owner-occupied, I don't see how you can give that group, that large group of people, just general tax relief, because then you'd be passing along millions of dollars of tax liability to the other 25%. Talk about Block Island a lot. There's about 2,000 homes there, about 400 of them are owner-occupied. You talk about Narragansett a lot, there's 9,000 properties, only about a third are owner-occupied. So it's easy to do a homestead there, because you're passing, the owner-occupied is a very small amount, and you can pass that tax liability to rentals, vacation homes, and so forth. So these are all the conversations. Yes, so the answer is yes, we should have a work session in September, and we should have many work sessions after that, so that we can see what the options are, what the goals of the town council are to get a homestead exemption, how we can do it under the exemption part of it, but also have a tax impact so you can study it. We'll have to have Brian look at it, and the tax assessor and the tax collector, everyone looking at these numbers.
Jim, can you also have Wendy come in with statistics on how many people take advantage of the exemption program that we have?
She is. That's August 12th. She has all that.
And you mentioned specifically single-family homes. I know there aren't many, but there are some multifamily. I don't know if she can pull that out
She has
too.
those numbers as well.
Okay. That would be helpful to break out what's
And
single-family.
she
what's
proactively does this every August, just to update the council and go over, are the exemptions high enough? Do you want them higher? So we'll do that at the August 12th meeting.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, it's now going to bring us to public comment. Anyone in the audience who hasn't spoken, who wishes to, I invite you to come on up. We just ask that you introduce yourself, and we're going to limit you to 5 minutes.
Is that on? Great. Hi, I'm Roxanne Beinart. I'm a resident of Wakefield with my family, which includes 2 young kids who are enthusiastic park and playground attendees. And I'm here today to urge the council to really consider preserving the Wakefield Elementary School property as a public use space, including a park and playground. I moved to Wakefield in 2017, so I have been a resident here long, but I really love this town, and I view this as my forever home. But before I lived here, I lived in Falmouth, Massachusetts, and that town is very similar to our town in many ways and has a beautiful park and playground right in the heart of their downtown area, which draws in local families, tourists, to go to the park and the playground, to go to the local businesses, to have coffee or ice cream or a meal, and then sort of be part of this vibrant community that's in their downtown. And so I really urge the council to consider that this could be an opportunity for Wakefield to really push our park forward to be this kind of central heart of our town now. And I would say that turning this space into housing would be a really permanent loss of this beautiful public space that would reverberate for generations to come. A park would serve all ages, strengthen our local economy, and make downtown Wakefield even more appealing to locals and tourists. So please keep this land public. Let's build something the whole community can enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak who hasn't spoken yet? All right, we're going to move on. Item 12 is communications. Item A is an email continued from July 14, 2025, dated June 18, 2025, from Mary Lynn Williams, requesting the town to enact a dog barking ordinance. Mary Lynn Williams, are you in the audience?
So Mary wrote an email and said that she was unable to attend. She, did you all get that email?
I did.
Okay. So,
Chief Moynihan, come on up. We want to talk this through with you.
So although Mary wrote the email, I'm mostly interested. I had asked this to be on the agenda while Jim was on vacation, and it didn't connect, and it didn't come to be. However, I'm just curious.
It's on the agenda now.
I know, thank you. I'm just curious, when people are frustrated about their neighbor's behavior, I want to take it a little bit differently as well. Like, if the dog is barking, that's one thing. Dogs bark all the time, but like, what's the process and what should they do? I'm trying to do like a little educational commercial here so that people know how to handle frustrations.
So oftentimes we'll get calls about excessive dog barking to go out and find out. Sometimes we've found dogs that are left outside and the owners aren't home. So, I mean, we'd handle it just like any other noise complaint that comes in to try to figure out, and I think each instance is different and specific. So as far as, you know, and then we'll follow up, animal control will speak with the dog owners if it's found that, you know, just some dog's in back and it's just constantly barking and the owners are aware of it and it's disrupting the neighborhood, then there is follow-up. But there isn't really anything on the ordinance that would allow us, other than, you know, bring it to their attention and in making sure that the animals are being cared for.
How often do you get a call like about a barking dog incessantly?
Not too often. I mean, I have to go back and look at the data on our calls, but, you know, most of the time, I think the incidents that come in is when the dog's out there and it's out of the ordinary, where maybe the owner got hung up and is late coming home or left out, whatever it might be. But, you know, not too frequent, but I think we do have our fair share that come in.
Chief, are there tools that you should have in the ordinance that you don't, that would help?
I think if we could look at, you know, if it was a repeated type of situation, and if the animal control officer felt as though, you know, repeated warnings were provided to the homeowner, it wasn't just once in a while type of situation, but where it becomes a nuisance to the neighborhood.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm just wondering, is there something that should be in our code that isn't, that would cover that for you? I'm not looking for some super enforcement.
Maybe I can help. There is an ordinance on the book. The ordinance says when a barking dog is brought to the attention of the animal control officer, the resident is told the situation must be completely abated within 3 days. If it's not, fines can be imposed. One thing that's different now that we haven't had in the past is we have a municipal court. So, and that's been one of the best things you did as a council in terms of enforcing these ordinances. I don't think we updated the ordinance with the most modern language around back in 2016. I was there for that. There's a lot of research done. We looked at what other communities had. So we do have an ordinance on the books. But having said that, this is one of the most difficult issues for your police department to deal with, barking dogs. And again, as the chief said, it's a one-off situation. It doesn't apply town-wide. It applies to the particular neighbor who's being bothered by that barking dog. So I really, and I looked at it again tonight. I highlighted the language, et cetera. I think we've got a good ordinance in place. I think if it's an ongoing problem, as the chief says, we can impose fines and/or go to muni court.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
So if a resident is frustrated, they call the police station or animal?
They'll call the police, and then if animal control's on, they'll follow up,
And
or
they'll
an
follow
officer will deal with it at night, or if the animal control officer isn't on, and then follow-up would happen.
You don't have to speak publicly about this, but would you typically have spoken, or someone have spoken to these property owners to help them either address the issue, figure out a better solution?
Yeah, and I think, Tara Essex is our animal control officer. She does an excellent job.
I know.
In really working with the residents in situations like this. So it's, where the animals being cared for, I think is really what she's looking for, and what may be contributing to the dog having the barking issue or excessive barking. But I think looking at each individual case, and as I said, Tara does a great job, and if it becomes a constant, then we do utilize that tool of municipal court, and that's been helpful.
I have a simple question. We got the email, it was continued from July 14th, or the email was from June 18th from Mary Lynn Williams asking us to enact a dog barking ordinance. Did we let her know that we have a dog barking ordinance? Did anybody respond to this person?
I'd only let her know both times when her item was going to be on the agenda, and she had responded a couple of times, but I did not point that out.
All right. Well, I just feel like that would be the most prudent step when someone's requesting a dog ordinance, that we say, hey, just to let you know, we have a dog or barking ordinance. Because that would be like, oh, great. And then...
And we can check our files also
And
to
it covers more than barking. It's pretty all-inclusive. In addition to barking or making noise, it's damage to property, being vicious. It's pretty comprehensive.
Miss Williams might be very happy to hear about this. So we should probably email her back.
What is it, Mike, a nuisance ordinance?
I'm trying to find it. What is?
Section 3-22, care and control of dogs.
Okay.
Can we direct someone to get back to her?
Yes.
I think that's pretty.
Nicole, you've been in
low-hanging
communication
fruit
with
there.
her. Perhaps we could direct you to provide a copy and paste of the ordinance so that she's informed as to it.
Yep, not a problem.
All right, great.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Okay, next up, item B, an email dated July 12, 2025 from Susan Mayette requesting the income brackets for the property tax exemptions for elderly persons. I think we discussed this already. We're going to have an update on this at the meeting on August 12th. So no action to be taken on this one.
Can we let Susan Mayette know to tune in on August 12th? Thank you.
All right. Item C, an email dated July 15, 2025 from Helen DeSanto rendering her resignation from the Canvassing Authority.
Let's accept Helen DeSanto's resignation from the Canvassing Authority. Thank her for her service. I know she served a very long time.
I know she has served the town for a really long time, and it was really sad to get that email
I
from
know.
her.
And then we'll have to move to replace her at a future time, and that is not the same process.
No, so I've already submitted requests to both the Republican and the Democratic town committees. I don't think each of them will give me 5 candidates. The Republican town committee already got back to me. They gave me 1 name. Direction from the state is that you take what you can get. So I'm still waiting on the Democratic town committee to get me a list of their candidates as well for the council to consider on another date.
No problem.
Thank you. All right. Did we have a motion there? think
I
we
did.
Second.
We have a second. We got a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next up, we got a letter dated July 16, 2025, from the EDC requesting permission to circulate 2 surveys relating to a community workspace and workforce housing to South Kingstown residents.
Good evening, everyone. We've got to stop meeting like this, I'm telling you. This letter idea wasn't that great. Seriously, we have 2 surveys that we are proposing to conduct. One is an update, sort of a sanitizing or taking the Wakefield Elementary School out of the equation and the content of the survey, just to find out what kind of demand there is for office space, lab space, incubator space, those kind of things. And then, in addition to that, we're starting a study of the available commercial property in town to see if we have a balance and a need, or can we satisfy with what we've already got, and what kind of consortium or clearinghouse could we have for people to go to a place to find some space. So that was survey 1. And the second survey we've discussed with both South County Hospital and URI, and they're willing to do this, and it would be a survey of their employees to see what their inclination would be to move to South Kingstown, and why won't they move to South Kingstown? What are the impediments? And is it money? Is it the commute's not that long anyway, or they prefer to stay where they are? So we'd like to get that information to basically inform the housing initiatives that we have here in town, and to try to amp up some way that the large employers can get people to move to town.
All right. What do we think?
I reviewed them. They look good. I like that you reflected the changes that we asked. And I would say that when, I know it's in the top line under the Community Workspace and Innovation Hub survey, you're exploring the viability for a need for shared workspace and innovation hub in South Kingstown, not in Wakefield, right? Because it could, if it's in Peacedale.
It's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like if it's in West Kingston, whatever, right? But in South Kingstown. And I know that's not part of the surveys, but just as methodology, right?
It's excellent.
Otherwise, great.
Great, thank you.
So,
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
And I know you're I guess I always look at, having taken a number of research classes, the design of the survey, and a lot of potential for like inter-rater liability, or someone trying to just trying to say the perceived right answer, and that is not, like they're trying to. I just feel that the data will show a skew that won't be able to be accurate in some ways. I think people will say, a lot of people will want to live in South Kingstown, right? So what does that get us? We know that, right?
Right.
So for that piece, I feel like a lot of people are going to say, I can't afford to live here. That's what they're going to say. There's not the houses here, starting average home is over 500,000, right? When you look at Narragansett or Barrington, they're huge. They're high high price point. So then how does knowing that solve anything?
Do you know it now?
What?
So do we know that now? Like we'll know a number of people in the family, what their like gross income is together. There's other information that we use to help make decisions, right? So the more information we have, the better decisions we can make. And that's the idea of the survey. I'm not trying to skew it towards one. Of course, yeah, everybody wants to live on the beach, right? But we're trying to get, right?
Right, everybody wants oceanfront property, but I can't live on Park Avenue either, right? So like what I want and what I can afford and what I need to have is all different.
The survey is basically asking, what do we need to do for you so that you will live in South Kingstown where you work? Okay, so that's the answer we're going to get. It's not that we want to live in South Kingstown, it's what would we have to do for you to be able to do it?
Right.
We would have to have X number of houses at this price point. We would have to, and they'd have to be this big because the families are this size. And that kind of information is the kind of things you can take out of this survey.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can't recall, I mean, you don't ask people to disclose their income, right? So if you are a clerk at the University of Rhode Island, you might make $45,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So that is you can't buy a house because that's what you earn, right? So I don't know how, I just feel like.
They ask about the rent, right? So that's the data point that you're getting. What are you paying for rent, right? Number 10, if you pull up the survey. And I think that, I've also been trained in qualitative and quantitative methodology and research, and you will get quantitative data from this. So I think this is a good survey.
Yeah.
So just to let you know.
So my other question is about incubator space.
Yeah.
So if you drive around, you can see a lot of things for rent or places in the commons or whatever. So I'm just concerned that government would be offering something at a discounted rate and then further impact businesses who can't rent their retail space or their office space. Can you speak to that?
Well, we're not proposing to create a public space for this. We're trying to understand what the demand is so that we can match it to the available supply and see whether we have an issue or not. And so that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not proposing a public incubator space at this point. We're gathering.
Well, you were so you were before. So I was.
We were.
Yeah, we were.
And Counselor, when you say government, do you mean local government, or do you mean just generally?
I can't hear you at the same time. 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to compete with commercial interests. We're just trying to assess and to inform commercial interest and anybody and us as to what the demand for this might be.
Okay. And so then my other question is, when we did a work session with the EDC, you guys were working on a dashboard, an economic dashboard. Where's that?
I think Brian pointed out to us that the town does some kind of a status report, annual report or something like that, and we were looking to investigate whether or not that some of that information might be what we were contemplating putting together. So we were going to work with the town to figure out whether we continue on that initiative or not.
So you're not currently developing that or pursuing that?
It's kind of on hold.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Good. Mike, I looked through the survey. I also had a conversation, and this may be an opportunity for you. The executive director of the South County Chamber of Commerce is interested in talking with you about your interest, if any, in using his mailing list with 700 members. These are business people. Some of them are in South Kingstown, some of them are out. But they have enough of a connection here to belong to the chamber.
Right.
And that may also help you gather more data.
Yeah, thank you for that. We were planning to work with Joe on that.
Joe's interested.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I'll just say thank you. I spoke to Joe today, so he gave me a call shortly after he spoke to you. I didn't know it was you he spoke to, but thank you.
All right. Hey, I'm cool with this. I think you guys put a lot of work into this. We had an initial meeting about it. We fleshed it out. We had some sort of, disagreements or, had to work through what the goal is, what it was gonna, actually, show us, or what the results would be, what we'd actually obtain. But you guys are working through this. You guys are adamant about it. I think we're at a point that I'm good to go on this. So hopefully this, yields some results, get some good data you guys can, work with, analyze, and then preferably make some recommendations to the council as far as policy decisions that can better the town.
Oh, good, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion. Go ahead.
Motion to approve item 12D.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Town Council.
All right, it's going to move us to item E, a letter dated July 17, 2025, from William Bally requesting Gravelly Hill Road be repaired. Rich, you want to talk about this one? But Rich, let's keep it brief now. This was a handwritten note, so maybe we'll stay within however long that one is.
No, all I can say, and it's mentioned in the letter, that we are planning to repave Gravelly Hill Road. It's just going to be another couple years. It's in the CIP.
All right.
I just want to add, though, one more thing that, when I got going here, we were estimating about $75 a linear foot for repaving roads. We're in that $120 to $25 a linear foot, so we're doing much less than we were able to before. But that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be done. And we'll know more when we do our pavement management plan as well. So
Yeah,
we'll be able to have some more empirical data on what roads are going to get done.
I was going to say that because that road is very busy, and they outline it's because of South Shore Village and the golf.
Right.
That I would be interested to see if the chief eventually could look at how much traffic is actually on that road on a regular basis. Because
Yeah, I'm sure it's going up quite a bit.
there
Now,
was an
the
accident
course
on
has become-
Shannock Road a couple months ago, and people are not paying attention and flying to the back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't do anything. I mean,
Yeah,
it's grown quite a bit.
that-
Absolutely.
Because that was never intended to be public and used to that level.
That's right.
I was also going to ask I know you've got a priority matrix of what roads get repaired when. Does a change in the level of traffic on the road change its position? You said it was going to be a couple of years.
So you weren't at that
No,
meeting?
we are, I was approved at the last meeting for a pavement management plan, so we'll be able to actually categorize our roads, or number them by, what they're, based on their needs. But the ones that are in most immediate need of repair, we'll do that, and I'll bring to you more empirical data, is what my hope is. But roads that are traveled more are generally going to be in greater disrepair. I mean, you'll look at, Pond Street is a perfect example. Pond Street is a perfect example. The corners on Pond Street are just falling apart, and we're going to have to get in there and fix that. And it may be that we do sections, but that's a good example. It's just a high-volume road. So certainly that the additional traffic on Gravelly Hill Road will cause additional problems. But more often, though, you'll see that truck traffic will cause more problems, just the heavier loads. Gravelly Hill Road, yeah, maybe it does have that, but certainly Pond Street does. With the marina so close and all that. So yeah, there are a lot of factors, but when it comes down to it, is that the road falls apart quick enough, and in the future we'll know more quickly because we'll be doing regular updates. But
This may not be helpful, but I actually went and drove the entire length both directions, and it seems to me that the south-heading direction is in worse shape. Is it possible to do one side?
For Gravelly Hill?
Yeah.
So Gravelly Hill Road is particularly tricky because it is long. It's I think it's 8,000 linear feet or something like that. It's a long road, and whether we can even fund it in a single year, I'm not quite sure, but I'd like to think we could. But I mean, you could always do a lane. It's really, you don't want to do that, frankly. You really want to do it all at once, but it's possible. When a utility company comes in and does a utility line on one side of the road, we require that they pave it from curb to curb. So it'd be, it's for that reason. You don't want to have a seam down the road like that lasts multiple years.
So has someone communicated with Mr. Bailey?
Well, in the letter, it does note that they did talk with Scott Brown, and so he has talked to them about it. So I mean, I'm not sure what else I mean, there's nothing more we can say. It is in the queue. They're asking specifically for you to get it done. And what I'm telling you is.
Like
it's
advance
planned.
it ahead of other
I
things.
guess. I don't know.
Hmm.
I like the handwritten letters, by the way.
What? You
I
like
like
the
handwritten
handwritten?
letters, yeah. I do get a lot of those. It's interesting.
All right.
They get a little bit more attention than just a blast off from the keyboard, frankly.
All right, I think we're good on this one. No action to be taken. Thank you, Rich.
I'll tell you what, I will call them, though. I'll call them
Thank
again,
you,
let them know
Rich.
that it was
Thanks,
discussed,
Rich.
okay?
Thank you, Rich.
All right.
All right, it's going to bring us now to appointments. What do we think? We got 2 planning board seats, 1 serving now, looking to be reappointed, 2 people interviewed for 1 vacant seat. What are we thinking?
We also had the 4 outstanding that Nicole sent us, right?
Oh, there's 4 outstanding? They haven't interviewed yet?
So we had, at the last meeting, we had 3 interviews, 2 were for reappointments, and, we had 2 interviews. We have 3 outstanding. It was Liz Karp for Planning Board for reappointment, Lindsay Madom for reappointment to the Library Board, and we still haven't appointed Jerry Schaefert to the EDC, and then we have the 2 who interviewed today for the 1
All right,
planning
let's
board
do
position.
Schaefer and Lindsay. Let's take those 2 first. Schaefer to the Economic Development
EDC.
Committee?
Mhm.
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion.
Seconded.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then we got Lindsay, Library Board of Trustees.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Now we got the Planning Board. There's 1 person on the board looking to be reappointed. There's 1 vacancy. We interviewed 2 people for that. My preference is to reappoint Liz Karp and to appoint Armand Monaco as a new Planning Board member.
I'll make that motion.
We got a motion. I'll second it. Any discussion?
I think the 2 interviews today were both very highly qualified, so I'm stuck between those 2. With Liz, I would support Liz because it's a reappointment, but the 2 that were interviewed today, I'm kind of stuck between the 2. That's how I feel. I think they'll both be very great additions to the planning board. That's what I mean. So.
It would almost be nice to sort of look at the backgrounds of everybody on the board. I think tonight there was 2 attorneys, correct?
And yes.
So how many
So Rick Zurzak has served as the zoning board member for, they're very similar. They both have law degrees. But so do Rory and Mike, and they have very different interest areas in the area of law, right? But then you have someone who served on a town board and commission in South Kingstown. The other man served other,
He was a magistrate.
correct,
And
other
he-
places.
Which is pretty up there, folks.
Yeah.
I mean, but
So-
the planning board guy was pretty good too.
So the thing that stuck out to me in terms of Rick, when I didn't know this about him, that he drives to all the zoning things, and that shows diligence and effort to like really understand and visualize the property. And I think a lot of times planning has to do their own site visits and things like that. And so I think they both have an understanding.
Mr. President, I'd feel more comfortable of reappointing Liz Karp tonight alone and waiting to the next meeting to make a decision on the open seat.
Okay. So, still in the discussion phase. Do others feel similar to that?
I would like to maybe have a chance to reflect on that a bit more for the 2 people that we had tonight. So I would be inclined to reappoint Liz and then maybe make the other appointment in a couple of weeks.
Okay. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna retract my motion, revoke it, pull it back. What's the technical word, Mike?
Rescind.
Rescind my motion. And I'm gonna make a motion to appoint Liz Karp.
Second.
Reappoint her to the planning board. There's a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right, that passes. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We got a motion, second. Any discussion?
Good night, South Kingstown.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, that passes. See you next time.